report. Clients own the two properties that I spoke of, and two of the transit operators are clients also. And because of the way we've got this set up virtually, I can't give you those right now. I can't give you the item numbers, but I will send that to Judy.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Solomon. With that, we'll move into item 8, planning.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Judy, could you please confirm that I am showing the correct presentation screen before I begin?
Yes, your screen is showing the entire screen, so that's good.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Mayor Caniff. The planning meeting process for tonight's meeting will be as follows. 1, the clerk will announce each individual planning item. 2, the clerk will advise if any written submissions have been received regarding a planning item. If so, the clerk will read the written submissions that have been received. 3, for any items where a written submission is received, administration will proceed with the presentation. 4, council will be asked if it has any questions of administration or the applicant if present. 5, council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to the item. Notice, if any person or public body that files an appeal of a decision of council in respect of the proposed applications does not make a submission to the municipal clerk of the corporation of the municipality of Chatham-Kent before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the local planning appeal tribunal if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party to the appeal. Notice of passing. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons who have made a request or who have made a submission regarding a particular planning item will receive a notice of council's decision, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk. Thank you.
(8A) for planning, application for drafts plan of subdivision, Henry Heineck Excavating Limited and 1815513 Ontario Inc., Park Ave East and South Sass Road, Community of Chatham City. We have not received any written submission and the applicant is not on the line.
Councillor Crew and Councillor Finn, can we get the two of you to put it on the floor, please?
I'll move that motion. Recommendation 1, A, B, C, and D.
And I'll second.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. Mayor Caniff and Ryan, I just wanted to let you know, maybe we could skip over 8B for a second. We're just trying to get, IT's working with Mr. French and trying to get him on. And since that's his application coming up next, if we could just slip and do C, D, E, and F and come back to B, that would be helpful and give IT some time.
We can certainly do that.
Thank you. 8C, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Richard and Bonnie Laprise, 24877 Winterline Road, Community of Dover, North Kent. There have been no written submissions and the applicant is not online.
Councillor Foss and Councillor McGrail, can I get the two of you to put on the floor, please?
Also move.
And I'll second.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. 8D, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Joel Pinsino, 8023 and 8069 Pine Line, Community of Dover, North Kent. There has been no written submissions and the applicant is not online.
Councillor McGrail and Councillor Foss, can I get the two of you to put on the floor, please?
So moved.
So second.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. 8E, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Brian Pepper, 20268 Dillon Road, Community of Raleigh, South Kent. We have not received any written submission and the applicant is not online.
Councillor Stacacci and Councillor Thompson, can I get the two of you to put on the floor, please?
Happy to put it on the floor. Mayor Caniff?
Happy to second it.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. 8F, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Leclerc Farms, Inc., 25501 St. Clair Road, Community of Chatham Township, North Kent. We have not received any written submissions and the applicant is not online.
Councillor Foss and Councillor McGrail, can I get the two of you to put on the floor, please?
Also move.
And seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Couple more. All votes are in. Motion passes. Now we'll go to 8B, application for zoning bylaw amendment, ATAP Properties, Inc., 530 Victoria Ave, Community of Chatham City. We do have the applicant online, and council, we have received 10 written submissions in which the clerk's office will now read. The first one is from Dan and Helen Glakowski. Dear members of council, in regards to the rezoning of 530 Victoria Ave, Chatham, my wife and I are in complete opposition to this proposal. We have resided at 520 Victoria Ave, which is adjacent to the property in question, for almost 30 years and have enjoyed peace and quiet which comes within this residential neighborhood. This rezoning would greatly affect our quality of life as well as the surrounding neighborhood. Obviously, this would include higher traffic flow, excessive noise, both during the day and evening, and a lack of privacy for us. Thank you for your time and consideration.
The next letter received is from Tom and Kathy Stewart from 506 Victoria Avenue. Dear Sir or Madam, we wish to express our concern regarding the application for a zoning bylaw amendment to 530 Victoria Avenue, Chatham. In the document sent to our home listing proposed uses, we question the business that could be occupying the building. We feel it is too vague. One of the bullets noted a commercial entertainment and recreational establishment. This particular bullet set off red flags for us. We feel that if this becomes commercial, it may never go back to its intended use. Commercial traffic, as well as increased traffic flow and noise, could become an issue in the future as well. We feel there are many other spaces already zoned commercial in Chatham-Kent that could be utilized rather than rezoning this property. This area is mainly residential. We don't feel that this is a proper use of space for this area. Office space is one thing, commercial entertainment is another. Regards, Tom and Kathy Stewart.
The next deputation is by Sean Borman, resident of 527 Victoria Avenue in Chatham. Earlier this month, I received the notice of complete application and public meeting to consider an application for zoning bylaw amendment with respect to the property at 530 Victoria Ave. The purpose of this letter is to voice my concerns with this zoning amendment to which I am opposed. I have lived across the street from this property since 1988, and it has seen numerous uses during that time, including a school, church, and after-school education program provider. My concerns around approving this zoning amendment are specifically related to, number one, the increase in the amount of traffic that the proposed establishment will bring. Whereas the previous uses for this property had traffic flow at specific times of the day related to school start-stop times and church start-stop times, the existence of a personal service establishment, assembly hall, and commercial entertainment and recreational establishment will create substantial traffic flow throughout the day. Number two, the existence of a boxing club may serve to bring a larger influx of traffic into the neighborhood if there are any exhibitions or events which take place at the property. Number three, the existence of a retail establishment or any other proposed rezoning may result in advertising signage that is unsightly and unfitting for a residential area. Number four, this section of Victoria Ave already serves as a haven for speeding traffic, which is not well patrolled or enforced by local police, creating safety issues for playing children, patrons of the bike lanes, and residents backing out of their driveways. And the addition of traffic for the proposed establishments will make this issue worse. Number five, this is a residential neighborhood and not a commercial or business neighborhood. There are a multitude of reasons that commercial establishments are generally separated from residential areas, including our right to be free from the additional noise, traffic, litter, negative impact on property value, and street desirability, and other factors that were assumed to be guaranteed when we moved to our neighborhood 32 years ago. While I respect the ambition and entrepreneurship of the property owners, I oppose the approval of this application for the above noted reasons. Sincerely, residents of 527 Victoria Ave, Sean Borman.
The next one is from Carolina Keeler. Good day. As a homeowner of 19 Victoria Ave, I have reservations about the zoning bylaw amendment of 530 Victoria Ave in the community of Chatham City. Commercial activity should be kept in commercial areas. Chatham has multiple empty buildings that are zoned as commercial spaces and should be filled before the city starts considering rezoning residential areas. Victoria Avenue is one of Chatham's oldest streets with characteristic homes that should stay strictly residential. Allowing lots to be rezoned commercial will allow for further changes that will not benefit the homeowners that have invested in the area. Thank you, Carolina Keeler.
The next deputation is from Grant Randall. I am writing to express my opposition to the application for zoning bylaw amendment. My family lives at 129 Glenwood Drive. Our backyard abuts the rear property, which is applying for the zoning bylaw amendment. My understanding is that the proposed zoning change would allow for multiple uses for the concerning property. This is a concern for us, as the change would create an increase in the amount of parking and associated traffic directly behind our backyard. This traffic would create a large increase in both noise and light pollution for us, particularly since the hours of operation would increase due to the multi-use nature of the property. There is currently a chain link fence which separates our properties. This fence is inadequate to give us any protection from the increased traffic. I believe that if the proposed zoning is approved, our reasonable enjoyment of our backyard would be greatly impaired. I was born and raised in Chatham and have recently retired and moved back after being employed out of town for many years. I endorse local improvements. However, I have to oppose this change unless something can be done to maintain the peace and privacy of our backyard. Sincerely, Grant Randall.
The next deputation is with respect to 530 Victoria Ave by Mr. Ken Labadie. I strongly oppose the requested bylaw change. The property is surrounded by R1 residential property. The current zoning was to meet the needs of a school, not a cannabis retailer, hairdresser, or a gym. I wish to list some of the reasons for my objection to the zoning change. Number one, our property values will be negatively affected. Number two, objectionable amounts of traffic, 71 parking spaces. Number three, increased danger to neighborhood children. Number four, if the bylaw change is passed, it will turn a quiet neighborhood into a noisy, busy street. Number five, there is no existing commercial property nearby. Number 6, what will this do to our taxes? Number 7, currently there is a group home 2 doors west of 530 Victoria. They use the area a lot to exercise their clients. I have a few questions for 2 of our council persons. Mr. Bondi, do you wish to protect all of Victoria Ave or just your area? And Mr. Solomon, you stated recently there were lots of areas outside of the city to raise chickens. Would you please apply this same mindset to the zoning change? We already have lots of commercial property that is not in our R1 zone. Has there been a deal cut prior to July 20th? There have been tenants occupying the property for several months already. Thank you for your time, Kenneth Labadie.
The next deputation is from Ruth and Ryan Tinline. Chatham-Kent Council, please accept our letter of opposition to the proposal from ATAP Property Inc., Victoria Avenue. The history, the beauty, the peace, and the pride of the home ownership is on this great street. We love our home, the history of the home, and this neighborhood. The proposed amendment is solely focused on business returns. We are confident that the owners of this property bought it with their eyes wide open to the existing bylaw. Further, we believe that they can and will be successful with the outline of the existing bylaw for their business. Please do not let business revenue trump residential peace and pride. Traffic on our street is currently heavier and much faster than we would like given the parallel back lane access to St. Clair Street Retail Power Center. This proposal will add to the traffic volume and further will change the business activity window given its request for retail, commercial, entertainment, etc. This is not what Victoria Ave is all about. Please oppose this requested amendment and help keep the pace and the peace of our beautiful street and lovely residential neighborhood. Respectfully, Ruth and Ryan Tinline, 529 Victoria Ave.
The next deputation is from Elisabetta and Rizard Gamir. My name is Elisabetta Gamir. I am the owner of 500 Victoria Ave in Chatham. My husband and I don't welcome the proposal for commercial rezoning of 530 Victoria Ave. We believe that allowing commercial zoning on our street will ruin the quiet atmosphere of a historically elusive family residential community. The reason why we decided to live on Victoria is that there are no commercial sites. Also, commercial zoning has an impact on property values. As homeowners, we wish to maintain and maximize our investment. There are plenty of commercial sites in Chatham that are not actively being used. For example, downtown has multiple empty spaces that would benefit from new businesses opening up. This would drive activity in the appropriate part of town. While the whole purpose of zoning is to keep residential, commercial, and industrial areas uniform, we believe that Victoria Ave is not the appropriate street for commercial zoning. Thank you for your consideration, Elisabetta and Rizard Gamir.
The next deputation is with respect to 530 Victoria Avenue. And I will note on this one, there are approximately 12 signatures on this particular deputation. I would read all of their names, but they are not all typed out, so I can't clearly tell you who each of the names are, but council does have a copy of the deputation. And it reads as such. The undersigned are residents of Victoria Court, Chatham. On or about July 13th, 2020, most of us learned of the application for a zoning bylaw amendment application, cited above and known as application number D-14C2620A application. We are concerned that this application has been rushed, is based on incomplete information, and that it fails to accurately and adequately consider the holistic effects the proposed changes may have. The request to defer decision and require further evaluation. Respectfully, we are asking you, Mayor and Council, to set this decision to the side while the facts, benefits, and concerns regarding the application are further vetted. We believe that further consideration is prudent, consistent with the best practices of good community planning, and will ensure minimal impact to all parties. The basis of request. We are most concerned that this application is either being rushed to decision or has been extremely poorly communicated and socialized with neighboring residents and other citizens who may be impacted by the proposed change in use, including those with public safety concerns. The application proposes rezoning lands known as 530 Victoria Avenue, lots 100 to 102, and part of lots 99 and 103 of Plan 479 in the community of Chatham. These lands are located on the southwest corner of Victoria Avenue and Crerar Drive, and importantly, are presently a designated residential area in the Chatham-Kent official plan and zoned institutional. There are 3 road access and egress locations to the lands, 1 along Crerar Drive and 2 along Victoria Avenue. Originally sited and developed as a school for area children and later used as a community church, the building is surrounded on every side by single-family residential homes. On-site parking availability is purported to be 71 parking spaces. This number relies on the combined use of presently landscaped, grassed, undeveloped sections of the property and existing uneven and poorly graded gravel parking surfaces. The application notes that the subject lands were recently acquired with the intention of utilizing the property for, quote, an array of new community, commercial, and office type uses, end quote, and lists the proposed uses to include retail store, office personal service establishment, i.e. hairdresser, tailor, beautician, assembly hall, and commercial entertainment and recreational establishment, i.e. fitness center, boxing club. Some specific concerns. A, parking configuration and capacity. As set out in Appendix C to the application, the applicants are proposing to develop 18 exclusive and unique subspaces within the existing structure and include a supporting estimate of required parking spaces. At full occupancy, Appendix C identifies a requirement for 199 to 234 parking spaces. However, without explanation, Appendix C proposes the provision of just 71 parking spaces, a significantly reduced amount. Planning Services seems to disregard this discrepancy in their statement that, quote, site-specific zoning will also require that the subject site maintain a minimum of 71 off-street parking spaces, which is what currently exists on the site, end quote. The proposed parking configuration is a very unique mix of nose-in, parallel, and angled parking. This configuration has likely been developed to maximize the on-site parking capacity for the purposes of the application. Council must also be aware that this unique layout has been adopted in an attempt to meet the minimum requirements for vehicle maneuvering aisles and fire aisles within the parking area. Given that the site is a gravel parking area, we anticipate that the unique parking configuration illustrated within the application could not reasonably be replicated by patrons visiting the proposed establishment. 13 parking stalls, 18% of the proposed parking inventory, are shown on lands currently landscaped, grassed, and bound on 3 sides by neighboring residential dwellings, in particular, their private rear yards. We have concerns regarding the impact that the proposed parking lot expansion will have on these properties, and anticipate concerns including nuisance noise and nighttime headlight beams. The application does not make any mention of mitigating measures in this regard. The true parking capacity of the existing gravel and landscaped site is much less than stated in the application and warrants further scrutiny. Furthermore, we understand that present municipal standards require parking areas within new commercial developments to be asphalt covered. We believe that this important matter should be assessed and resolved before any approval is considered. Clearly, by their own submission, the applicant have identified a very real parking and emergency access concern. Section B, public consultation. The application is supported in part by a public consultation summary set out as Appendix E, where the applicants represent that they, quote, were able to speak with 95% of the area residents, end quote. The statement seems unfounded, gratuitous, and part of a rushed application process. The application does not describe and provide the specifics regarding their public consultation, including the dates, Appendix E is undated, times and location of residents contacted, or how the proposed zoning changes in the application were described or conveyed. We undertook a quick in-person poll of neighborhood property residents over the period July 14th through to the 16th and failed to identify one resident or property owner who had been approached in such manner. Most were not even aware of the application. We believe that such public consultation is important and should be undertaken before any decisions to rezone are made, and that the solicitation or consultation should be undertaken by an independent and qualified third party. Finally, we consider such consultation to be in the best interests of all parties, including the application proponents, local residents, and municipal planners, and further believe that it is fully consistent with the goals of the Ontario Provincial Policy Statement 2020 under the Planning Act and that it would allow for fulsome examination and consideration of the social and economic factors in land use planning, especially those of PPS Part 5 policies under sections 1.1, 1.4, and 1.7. Section C, traffic impact and public safety. Without supporting data and analysis, we are unable to properly consider any impact the proposed rezoning and land use changes are likely to have on area roads, especially and particularly Crerar Drive and Victoria Avenue, and the sidewalk on the west side of Victoria Avenue. However, it is reasonable to expect an increase in vehicle traffic if this application is approved, especially on and along this area of Victoria Avenue. This increased traffic flow will present greater likelihood for a variety of traffic problems, including collisions and possible injury. Enforcement of vehicle operating speeds by Chatham-Kent Police Services, already a routine occurrence for this segment of Victoria Ave, and parking enforcement issues due to questionable on-site parking capacity may become a greater issue. Additionally, the sidewalk at the most southerly entrance of Victoria Avenue is impeded by a large stand of cedar trees that can impede the visibility of drivers and pedestrians, potentially resulting in mishaps. Finally, the only access and egress to Victoria Court is almost directly across from the most southerly entrance and exit to the subject lands. This has the real potential to result in accident and injury. We believe this needs to be considered. A solution may be to restrict access and egress to one driveway off of Crerar Drive and eliminate both Victoria Avenue driveways. This will reduce the possibility for traffic impairment, including mishaps, on the busier Victoria Avenue. It also seems to make sense as the Crerar Drive access supports the majority of parking shown in Appendix A to the application. Additionally, such change would reduce the likelihood of patrons and employees parking on or along Victoria Avenue, a two-lane collector roadway with on-street cycling facilities. Crerar Drive, a local roadway with a no curb and no gravel shoulder, Glenwood Drive, or other streets in this vicinity. All of this will better promote the peaceful use and enjoyment by area residents and taxpayers. Section D, process. We are concerned that the process to rezone or repurpose this property is flawed or not being properly adhered to. Despite the very short notice to area residents, this application is set to be considered by you on July 20th. In our opinion, the application is incomplete in that it fails to provide adequate parking, is missing any meaningful and helpful public consultation process, and has not considered effective ways to mitigate the impact of Victoria Avenue traffic and public safety. Additionally, we are concerned that the applicants are either ill-informed or have a blatant disregard for the proper processes and procedures established to ensure proper planning and use in our community. A recent social media post by one of the people identified in Appendix E said, quote, 530 Victoria Avenue is perfectly positioned on one of Chatham's most majestic streets. This is completely renovated business campus offers a unique opportunity for companies to thrive and grow. If you're looking to start, expand, or relocate your business, this is the location for you, end quote. We understand that businesses are, in fact, presently operating on the premises. We fail to understand how this is possible, given that the application to rezone the property and allow such uses is pending your consideration on July 20th. In closing, we wish to be clear that we are not opposed to development and repurposing of buildings and properties in our community. On the contrary, we believe that our community should be considering a practical approach to residential and other infill development. We simply believe that such significant zoning changes need to be fully vetted and socialized among all affected, and also should be done in a manner that is consistent with approved practices, policies, and procedures. Any attempts to circumvent these objectives should be rejected, with a directive given to send the applications back for completion of same. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard and considered.
And the last submission is from Amy Rasberg, to whom it may concern. I'm writing you this letter in regards to the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 530 Victoria Ave, Chatham. I am the home owner of 39 Crerar Drive, Chatham. We support the decision to change use of the property. We do not see how this will change our neighborhood in any negative way. We have already noticed much improvement in curb appeal and can see it's a very well managed building. Thank you, Amy Rasberg. Mayor Caniff, that is all of the submissions. And as noted previously, the applicant is on the line.
Okay, we'll have a presentation by administration.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff.
Ryan, are you there? We can't hear you now.
My apologies. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Chatham-Kent has received a zoning bylaw amendment application for the subject property at 530 Victoria Avenue in the community of Chatham. When built, this was home to the Sprucedale Public School, which was closed and disposed of by the school board a number of years ago. And as it had been noted in some of the letters, there had been a number of different institutional or community type uses located in this building since that time. The property has recently changed ownership into the ownership of the applicant who's made the application. The zoning bylaw amendment is proposing to facilitate a change of permitted uses at the subject property by utilizing the existing structure and any existing off-street parking to service new community commercial and office type uses. As defined by the zoning bylaw, these uses would include retail store, office, personal service establishment, assembly hall, and commercial entertainment and recreational establishment. It should be noted that the assembly hall use is currently a permitted use in the institutional zone at this property and would remain under the site-specific zoning proposed. Council has just heard several written deputations that have been received prior to this meeting outlining the following general concerns: increased traffic, noise, privacy and lighting, that there's other suitable commercial spaces within the community, and that this is introducing commercial uses in a residential neighborhood. Before I get into detail on those points, I'd point out that examples of businesses expected to be occupying this site in the future, if approved, would be a martial arts school, which currently exists at the site and is permitted, a dance school, which currently exists at the site and is permitted, a new mindfulness and meditation center, which would utilize the former auditorium or gymnasium space of the school, a hair salon, nail salon, a counselor, and a clothing retailer. I should also note that since the writing of the report, there is no current proposal to site a boxing club at the site, which was planned. However, the basement area beneath the auditorium where this was planned would still remain zoned, if approved, to permit a similar type fitness center. So going back to some of the concerns that have been noted in the letters that were received, the first I've noted here is increased traffic. Certainly any type of institutional or commercial use will generate traffic in and out of the site. A traffic impact study was not a requirement of this application. The proposed uses were reviewed in the context of the property and its location within Chatham, and a negative increase in traffic, or an increase in traffic, was not thought to be negative at this location. For example, Victoria Avenue currently experiences approximately 250 vehicles in each direction at peak hour. Victoria Avenue is a collector roadway in the municipality in the urban area of Chatham, and it is designed to accommodate approximately 700 vehicles each direction per hour. So from a municipal function point of view, the road is certainly functioning well within its design parameters. Urban arterial roads to the north and south include Gregory Drive East and McNaughton Avenue East. These would be the roadways which would be anticipated to see traffic increases as well as a result. However, The letter writers accurately point out that Crerar Drive as well as Jackson Drive are local streets that connect St. Clair Street to Victoria Avenue. These streets are open and available to the traveling public, so it is possible that traffic would proceed to and from this site through those local streets. Anecdotally, it is more likely that traffic proceeding to the site would use these local roads and not necessarily traffic leaving the site, as making turns, particularly left-hand turns onto St. Clair Street, could be difficult most times. Therefore, it is anticipated that traffic leaving the site would travel either to Gregory or McNaughton Avenue. With respect to noise, it came up in a couple of the letters. Of the uses proposed, I can't identify any that would generate noise to a level or at times of the day that would represent a planning concern. Currently, it's not planned that any new outdoor activities would occur. It is currently possible that the martial arts school or dance school that are there could utilize the outside area for fitness generally as part of those ongoing programs. And that could be the case as well with any new uses that would locate here at this location if the zoning were to be approved. With respect to privacy and lighting, in particular vehicle lighting accessing the parking lots, this is certainly a valid concern. There is a chain link fence surrounding most of the site. It's quite a long perimeter where the site has neighbors in the rear with many houses on Glenwood, as well as a couple on Victoria, just to the south of the site. Intermittently, there is existing shrubbery on some of the abutting properties. However, there is currently no screening such as a cedar hedge or hard board-on-board fence at this property. Because this property is not required to go through site plan control, such as a new development, there's no mechanism in zoning to require the applicant at this stage to introduce any screening. Excuse me. However, in consultation with the applicant, they are very open and willing to installing greenery such as cedar trees along the perimeter, and they would be willing to do that in consultation with neighbors going forward if that was desired in any particular location. With respect to the points that there are other commercial spaces within Chatham, there are many commercial spaces available for these types of uses within the city. This particular owner offers an all-in rent that is desirable by the types of tenants that would be locating here. It's also a location that's that creates a cluster of like-minded businesses in some respects, that a campus environment can be created. And this is a type of commercial space that is not necessarily available elsewhere in the municipality. There might be a few notable exceptions where there are these types of locations. With respect to commercial uses in a residential neighborhood, the Chatham-Kent official plan does permit, through an approved zoning bylaw amendment, for neighborhood commercial uses to be located in a residential neighborhood. The Chatham-Kent official plan also promotes the adaptive reuse of former institutional buildings, such as schools and churches. So in this situation, this proposal meets all of the official plan policies with regard to establishing neighborhood commercial uses in residential neighborhoods. The uses are scoped to those that are identified in the official plan for being appropriate to serve local residents in a neighborhood in our municipality. As well, the property is located on a urban collector roadway. For example, proposals such as this would not necessarily be supported if it was only located on local streets. So this property is desirable in that it is on a urban collector road, being Victoria. As well, more broadly, the municipality over the years has considered many new uses at former church and school sites. Many have been implemented successfully around the municipality. Other school sites or church sites remain vacant and in some cases deteriorating. And as well, in the future, more churches and schools may close, will close, and other types of commercial and residential or community type spaces will be considered in the future for these other sites. So in sum, this application does represent good planning in the sense that it is utilizing an existing building within our municipality on a urban collector road with proposed uses limited in scope that are most suitable for its location in the municipality. And with that, I would be open to any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Oche.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Ryan, there are just a couple of points that I wrote down. You addressed almost all of them from the letters that we received. One was safety parking, fire zone. Was that addressed? Did I write it down correctly? It was someone mentioned concern about a fire zone for access for fire vehicles in the parking area.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. The design of this building currently does provide for fire routes. Parking cannot be within a fire route.
Okay.
Through any change of use permits through our building department, our building inspectors will ensure that fire routes are noted on any of the permits as part of the overall package, and the applicant would be aware of that, and there would be no parking permitted in those areas.
Okay, thank you. And the other one was that it seemed to be rushed and public consultation done, alluded to that the public consultation wasn't done properly. Is this the normal process that we go through for planning applications?
Timing standpoint, I would say that this was normal, if not maybe about a month longer than what might be expected. Originally, the applicant proposed quite a number of uses, probably more than 10 at this site. There was consultation with municipal administration and the applicant to drastically pare down that list to the 5 that are before council tonight, because it would have created the potential for over-intensification of this site. That added some time to the processing. What was different, and I don't obviously have to say it, but we are operating in a time period of constraints when it comes to good public consultation. Obviously, local land use planning, the underpinning is that it is a public process. It's a participatory process, and we do recognize that has been curtailed. This application came forward prior to any opening of the different stages of the opening up of the economy. You know, at another time, a public information center would have been a requirement for this development. At this stage, the applicant was advised to canvass the neighborhood. They were provided the 120-meter public notice circulation radius, and it's really becoming of the applicant to undertake what they feel is appropriate public consultation. It's not a requirement of the planning application that they do that necessarily. This meeting today really is the only required public meeting under the Act, but on many planning applications, applicants do more, often at the recommendation of our office. Specifically with the residents of Victoria Court, you know, it was a good letter. the point about the residents on Victoria Court not being notified, I just want to point out that the majority of Victoria Court is outside of the 120-meter circulation radius. So just by virtue of it not being a requirement to notify that far out may contribute to the reason why certain residents on Victoria Court and maybe elsewhere only more recently heard of the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, that makes sense. And one other question, what is commercial entertainment?
Okay. So commercial entertainment and recreational establishment is a defined use in the municipal zoning bylaw. And the definition is within the planning report, but I will quickly read it now. It is a place where facilities for leisure time activities are provided for hire or gain and includes, for example, a court for racket sports, dance hall, gym, fitness center, amusement game establishment, miniature golf, bingo hall, curling rink, bowling alley, cinema, and indoor swimming pool. In general, these are facilities that might otherwise be offered by, say, the municipality or another organization such as YMCA or like organization. Sometimes in our society, private, Chatham has a squash court, for example, that is at a private site, which falls under this definition. So it's really a catch-all definition for a number of activities that might otherwise be provided by the private sector.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Councillor Oche, followed by Councillor Latimer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ryan. Ryan, the establishment that we were just talking about, recreational, you said dance hall. Could that have a liquor license?
I don't know the answer to that. I might ask if possibly Judy or Paul Lucina could address that from a licensing or zoning perspective, if I could ask that.
So it's Judy Smith. I'll just speak quickly from a licensing perspective. We simply would get a request for a liquor license application through AGCO, and we would circulate it to the services, and they would provide an answer as to whether, occupancy and so on. But we aren't the ultimate sayers of whether alcohol is served there or not. We just offer a approval letter. I'll let Paul respond to occupancy and zoning.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. It's Paul Lucina. From liquor end of it, for an approval from the municipality, we would first look to see if the use is the dance hall, which is permitted, then if all requirements are met and they're operating as a dance hall and say not as a tavern or a bar, then we would look at approving a liquor license. And again, based on occupancy. So it is a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Your Worship, again to Ryan. Do you know what their intentions are as far as, like, right now you have 5 things listed. One of them was that recreational. And you said dance hall is permitted, but is that what they're actually looking to put in?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Other than the dance school that's there, no, the applicant has not indicated that any type of dance hall is a potential tenant at this location.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Latimer, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Councillor Crew and Councillor Oche actually answered the questions that I was asked from constituents who called me, except one. Neighbors are wondering if the property owner is currently residing at 530 Victoria?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I might have to defer to the owner by residing. I don't believe that they're living at the site, if that's the question.
That's what I
I'll
was
ask that
asked,
the-
yes.
So I'll ask that the owner, when he gets up and speaks, that he can address that question.
That'd be
David
great,
French.
thank you.
David French talking, agent of the owner. I can assure that the owner does not reside on the site. He is spending a lot of time there doing renovations, but he does reside in a house in Chatham.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Latimer?
No, that's it for me, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Finn?
A few of my questions have been answered. Through you, your worship, to Ryan. You answered some of them earlier. You also stated that in the city, there have been other areas where we put commercial, major commercial projects in residential areas. Could you give us some examples of those?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yes, I can. Really, one comes to mind, and one of the owners here is also a co-owner of one of the other sites, and that's 55 Forest Street in Chatham. This was the former McHugh School, and over the years, as I said, one of the applicants here worked with another partner in transforming that former school into a campus type commercial cluster of businesses in a residential neighborhood.
And were you employed at that time when they did that? Like, I'm just wondering, was there a public information submitted at that one?
Yes, there were a couple rounds of public input sessions there. There was more opposition received at that time at that site than here. Going from memory, certainly the school is quite a lot larger, and it's located more embedded in a residential subdivision. So I wouldn't want to compare from a contextual standpoint, other than that a similar concept was employed at that location in a former school.
And how many businesses are in that school on Forest?
I would only guess that there was up to maybe 20 or 25 businesses located there.
Okay. I just have to say, I was surprised at the lack of some information with regards to parking. For one, there's 18 businesses listed. And I have concerns about the fire road as well. There's no diagrams provided as to where these parking spots are going to be, how they're going to accommodate a fire route, which is a major concern that I'd be happy to see a deferral put in if it could be accommodated in September. Could deferral be put in and have a little bit more information provided at that time?
Council, if it chose, could decide to make a decision at a future council meeting. That's a possibility.
Is it possible to make that motion, your worship, to have it deferred?
It is, but I want to be able to hear from the
Okay.
Mr. French before voting on that.
Okay, that's all my
Go ahead.
questions.
Okay. So are you going to put a motion, or are you going to wait till after Mr. French speaks?
Well, I'd like to put that motion because, like I said, I have.
Okay, so you'd like to put a motion to defer. Do I have a seconder on that? Can I see a pop of a hand? Is Councillor Sakatch? I'm looking for a hand to pop up there to say the second. Councillor Finn, I don't see anybody else putting up a hand to second that.
Okay, that's fine then.
Okay. Now I don't see any other questions up. Can I go to Mr. French now to talk about what he's heard and about the property? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth, through yourself to the rest of council and those listening. As the report which Ryan Jakes from Planning presented tonight, when the owners were looking at potential sites, they referred to the official plan for Chatham-Kent, which again supports this type of adaptive reuse of the building. As well, they do have experience in establishing and operating a similar type campus, as Ryan mentioned at the Blair's Boot Camp facility. So based on that use fitting in very well with the existing residential neighborhood around Forest Street, just at the other end of Victoria Avenue, they thought that this would be a good fit for the business model which they've been successful. Now, as far as the letters received and the consultation with the neighbors, both Nate and Melissa Blair, the owners, did canvass those properties within the 120-meter buffer and did speak to a number of the neighbors that were home. And a basic précis of that outcome and those comments is provided in council's package tonight. Regarding the parking, the existing parking, you know, from my perspective, when I was consulting with Chatham-Kent, is adequate for the types of uses that are proposed in the building. Many of the uses will not overlap. For instance, the Taekwondo establishment and the dance school tends to attract children, likely many neighborhood children, and those will happen after school hours, assuming we do have school in September. And again, those parking spaces won't necessarily overlap with the personal service establishments or the counseling sessions, et cetera. And one of the big rooms in the building is the former sanctuary, and that currently is proposed to be occupied by a meditation facility, a nonprofit meditation facility. And it's not anticipated that, even though that there's 3,700 square feet in that room, that it will place a huge strain on the existing parking situation on the site. So again, in council's package and in the pre-consultation with Chatham-Kent, we did provide a conceptual parking layout, and the parking layout, which is in front of you, is based to scale, and the parking spaces shown can be accommodated on the site, and they're parked outside of what would be considered the aisleways and further outside of the emergency access route. So from our perspective, we do concur with the recommendations of the report, and you know, we want to be good neighbors, and we want to establish businesses that will serve the neighborhood and make the neighborhood more enjoyable for all. So if anyone has any questions for me specifically, I'm happy to answer them, but I think that's it.
Seeing no other questions, Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Kirkwood-White, can I get to the two of you to put it on the floor, please?
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, last call for any questions. Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move into the regular part of the meeting now. Item 9, presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. We have a 2019 Integris Annual General Meeting Report. We have Mr. Jim Hogan on the line. And Jim, if you'd just like to start, we will run your presentation for you.
Thank you very much, Judy. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all the councillors for the opportunity to make a short presentation to you this evening. 3 items that, want to share with council and the community. one being the 2019 operating and financial results. Second item is the resolutions that we would be looking for approval from all three of our shareholders for our annual general meeting. And then also just want to finish up with a couple comments of how Integris has been responding during the pandemic. So next slide, please. So Integris Inc. has 4 subsidiaries. They're listed there. Integris Power Lines, that's our largest business. That is the electricity distribution business, and it is regulated by the Ontario Energy Board. And annually, the Ontario Energy Board ranks all utilities, there's about 60 utilities now, ranks them in efficiency. And Integris Power Lines is always pleased to be in the second cohort, so second out of 5 groups, being most efficient in the province, and something that we strive very hard to do. And then the next slide, please. Just want to, what I'm going to walk through a little bit is just highlight some of like our core values and how we're responding to those. And health and safety is #1 for Integris, as you can imagine. Keeping our employees safe and our customers and the community, having them safe, that's a significant priority. And we work very hard at that. We continue to maintain the Certificate of Recognition, this core standard, and that's from the Industrial Health and Safety Association. So it's a good tool for us to oversee our health and safety program and to measure ourselves amongst other companies. And we once again received a 96% rating on our internal score. And then, as you can imagine, significant training each year to maintain safety and to keep everybody as efficient as possible. And the next slide, please. We're a very community-minded organization, and so we do a lot of supporting of our communities, a lot of support of very different initiatives, and we have a list there of the few that we participated in 2019, and the few that were in Chatham-Kent, being the St. Clair College Lineman Program, Habitat for Humanity, and then the few others. Next slide, please. We're very fortunate to have a fantastic and a very dedicated employees that work for us and serve our customers. But we have it's something we've been dealing with for a while, an aging workforce. And 2019, we had another, 9 individuals retire, and we had to recruit 9 individuals. We were very successful in bringing on some fantastic individuals, but that's making our workforce younger, which is a good thing, but we are losing on some significant experience. So it's something that we work very hard at to bring in the right individuals that will take care of the customers, not only for today, but for the future. And we're doing our best there. Customers, there's a lot there that we do with our customers and providing additional tools to inform customers, to have customers to communicate with us. We have a customer information portal, and we now have 20,000 of our 60,000 customers using that regularly. So it's been a great tool, allowing customers to get information 24/7 and helping them understand the electricity. A big project we had last year is worked closely with the Chatham-Kent PUC. We do the water billing as well as some water meter service at the customers' homes, and worked very close with the PUC. I think it was a very successful program, so that there was a changeover of 40,000 water meters, and that went as smooth as possible. So it's very pleased the PUC organized that program, and we're very pleased that we were successful in achieving their objective of replacing the water meters. And then we do an annual customer satisfaction survey, and once again we achieved a 94% satisfaction. That's about where we've been for a couple of years now, so it's a good number, a hard number to surpass every year, but we're doing our best to do that. So we're proud to get positive feedback from our customers. Next slide, please. We spend about $10 million a year. This is being the Integris power lines on our distribution system every year. Modernizing the system, as you can imagine, we're into some older neighborhoods, and so we're doing our best making it a more modern system. And we've had 3 large conversion projects in Chatham-Kent, one being in Blenheim, Ridgetown, and then we always have a few projects in Chatham. So again, we're doing our best to improve the reliability of the system and getting the opportunity to upgrade it, modernize it, put in some new technology that helps us out as we go along. A couple other items that have kept us very busy in the last few years is subdivisions. We've had some substantial subdivision growth in all 3 of our service areas, that being the Strathroy, St. Thomas, and in Chatham, and we're quite pleased and proud to see that Chatham has some significant subdivision growth now as well, and it's great to be bringing on new customers and to work closely in those communities. And then the other item, and I forgot to put it on this list, but another item that we're doing a lot of work is supporting fiber to the home. We have 2 companies that right now are working in Chatham, and they're coming on our poles. And so there's a lot of work we have to do in order to make our poles ready. And so we've been working hard with that, and I would say that those are successful. And I believe those service providers are looking to go out into the community, and I believe Wallaceburg's the next community that they're hoping to provide some fiber and some high-speed internet out to other communities in Chatham-Kent. Next slide, please. So one of our subsidiaries being Integris Services, that's where we have a data center service that's in Chatham-Kent, and then we now have fiber services in St. Thomas, and that was part of the merger we did with St. Thomas Energy. Now I just want to point out that the fiber services that we provide is really just to commercial and industrial customers. It's not fiber to the home. 2019, our focus was really on reliability and resiliency of the fiber network. So we had to make a few investments to make it a more reliable system, and that's worked out very well. We have focused on some customer growth, and that's increased by 50%. So that's going as planned. The other subsidiary, Integris Transmission, and that's where we support the renewable generation in Chatham-Kent, and the revenue opportunities are continuing there. Next slide, please. And then we also have Integris Renewable, and that's where we have a 15% investment in a wind project, that being the North Kent Wind. The first 2 years we've seen strong returns, and actually the returns have surpassed the forecast. So it's turning out to be a very good investment. Next slide, please. And then as far as our overall financial results for 2019, our net earnings increased by 16.7%. A lot of that had to do with a full year of St. Thomas. The merger with St. Thomas Energy, they were on for a full year. I believe 2018, we had 9 months, so it's a full 12 months for last year. And then, as I mentioned, the investment in North Kent Wind is turning out to be very well, and also the customer growth. We do borrow money on an annual basis. Because we are making those significant investments in the distribution system. And one thing that we do our best to do and monitor is to make sure that the debt level is below what is deemed or approved by the Ontario Energy Board, and we are well below that. So therefore, we have plenty of room to manage any challenges that we may see as we go forward. And then something we're very proud about is we've declared and paid a significant dividend, and I believe it was this very similar to the dividend we had in 2019, which was at that point the highest dividend we've ever declared. So we're meeting the obligations to our shareholders and to the various stakeholders. Next slide, please. So there's 3 resolutions that we need approved for the annual general meeting. Now, I'll be making a similar presentation to the City of St. Thomas Council on August 10th, and then we will also have a written written document to Corix, who is our private investor and the third shareholder. So the three recommendations that we require for the annual general meeting, one being the approval of the audited consolidated financial statements as at December 31, 2019. They were approved by our audit committee and then later approved by our board, and that's why we're recommending them for our shareholders for approval. And the next slide, please. And we'd also be looking for approval of the board members. And the board members that are appointed by and represent the municipality of Chatham-Kent are Max Vantoos, Pat McMahon, Helen Plattis, Councillor Doug Solomon, Mayor Darren Caniff, and Lindsay Boyd. And then the representative from Corix is Don Saduth. And then the two representatives from the city of St. Thomas, one being Councillor Gary Clark, and the other individual being Joe Brophy. And again, those are the board members for Integris Inc. And the next page, please. And then the last item is that we would be appointing Deloitte LLP as the auditors for the upcoming audit being December 31, 2020. And then the next slide, and I just kind of, as I mentioned, just wanted to provide a few comments as to what we've been doing over the, what has it been, I guess 4 months now since we've been working with the pandemic. I know everybody's businesses has changed quite a bit, and just kind of wanted to, provide a few comments to council and to community. So since middle of March, we've had about 70% of our employees have been working from home. We've had a lot of success with our information technology and all of the technology we use. Cybersecurity, very, very important, and that's worked out very well. For those that were not able to work from home, and a lot of that would be our line crews and our metering crews that work outside in the community, we've had significant precautions that were implemented to keep them safe and allowing them to do the work and provide the great service to our customers. We're now in the process of returning to the office. We put 3 teams together, and that process will be starting in the next week or so, and we'll be going through over, say, the next 2 months, so that sometime by middle of September, late September, assuming everything's still working in the right direction, we would have everybody working from the office at that time, being mid to late September. Next slide, please. March 19th, the Ontario Energy Board extended a winter disconnection ban. So for a number of years now, we have been unable to disconnect residential customers for non-payment. And that usually ends April 30th, but they've extended that to July 31st. And what they also did this time is introduced or included your low volume commercial customers. So we've been working very, very hard, communicating with the customers, doing everything we can to help them make their payments and find ways and other opportunities for arrangements, but we've not been able to disconnect any customers. And that I can say that'll start in August. Well, a couple of things that we've done to minimize the impact to customers. One is we waived the late payment fee for a few months. They couldn't pay their regular bill. To add late payment fees, challenging in order to make their payments. And then the next slide, please. As mentioned, the disconnection is complete the end of this month. We have been working very, very hard with the customers. We work hard with many different agencies to find opportunities to help them to make payments. Customers have done a great job communicating with us. That's what we're looking for. It's when we don't hear from customers, that's when we get a little nervous, and but when we get the customers in communication, we can really help them out. Very pleased that the government has introduced some additional funding, and this is for funding for customers that are unable to pay their bill as part of this pandemic. And so there's about $50,000 for residential and $50,000 for the commercial customers. So therefore, when we start talking more about, you know, possibly disconnecting customers. We will have up to $115 per customer, per residential customer, to help them out in making their payments. So it's great to see a few other tools now. I do want to make a comment that when this all started, Integris did provide some support to United Way in Chatham-Kent and in Middlesex County, where Middlesex County serves Strathroy and St. Thomas. You know, we reworked a few of the where we normally make some donations. We thought that this was the best place to do it, and I know that that helped out those organizations when this pandemic first started. And then just my last comment, I just want to recognize our employees. It's a challenging time for everybody personally, everybody trying to take care of their families, and they're still stepping up and I believe delivering an exceptional service, connecting our customers, communicating with our customers. So it's something that I'm very proud of, and I just want to acknowledge our employees with council and with all the community, because they're doing a great job. So that's it, and I don't know if there's any questions or anything that I can answer for council. And again, the main thing that we're hoping for here is to you know, get approval or have the mayor and the clerk sign those the 3 resolutions for the annual general meeting.
Councillor Solomon and Councillor Sakachi, can I have you put the motion on the floor, please?
Thank you, Worship. I do move that those 3 resolutions be approved.
Happy to second, Mayor Caniff. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
Just waiting for one more. Okay, all votes are in. Motion passes.
Thank you very much, and hope everybody has a good evening.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Hogan. Item 10, deputations.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. We have 3 deputations this evening. They are all with regard to item 16B, the motion of Councillor Crew regarding Emancipation Day. The first one is from Shannon Prince, curator at the Buxton National Historical Site and Museum. To Mayor Caniff and Chatham-Kent Council, I am writing to encourage Council to vote yes in favor of Councillor Crew's motion to support the creation of National Emancipation Day holiday. I am not only the curator for the Buxton National Historic Site and Museum, but also a 6th-generation descendant from what was classified as the largest and most successful of the planned settlements that were established. I am reminded daily of the sacrifices that our ancestors endured, but am also elated, humbled, and honored to be able to farm the land they acquired after finding freedom in Buxton, Canada West. August 1st, 1834 was a day of jubilation as slavery was abolished under the British Empire, but unfortunately many Canadians were oblivious to the fact that slavery existed in the land of freedom. In light of recent events, there has been awakening in Chatham-Kent who couldn't fathom racism, segregation, and other injustices existed here. This great Canadian mosaic was shaped by many people of color and indigenous who deserve to be honored and commemorated, but are mostly unknown. Now it is time for our council to lead us to take action to ensure the next generation will be proud of who we are as a community of history will not be repeated. Thank you, Shannon Prince, curator, Buxton National Historic Site and Museum.
The next deputation is from the Honorable Wanda Thomas Bernard, Senator, Nova Scotia, East Preston. To members of Chatham-Kent Council, I write this letter to support the Council's acknowledgement and support of Motion M36, Emancipation Day. Motion M36 was introduced in the House of Commons as a private member's bill by Mahid Jawahi, MP for Richmond Hill, Ontario. As described in my bill S-255 in the previous Parliament, which unfortunately died on the order paper, the annual observance of August 1st as Emancipation Day would be a poignant reminder of the abhorrent period in Canada's history in order to allow Canadians to reflect upon the imperative and to continue to commit to eliminating discrimination in all its forms. Emancipation Day is not simply a symbolic observance. It is an acknowledgement of Canada's history and a celebration of survival, human rights, equality, culture, and resilience. The recognition of Emancipation Day is a recognition of the multi-generational harms caused by slavery, an acknowledgement of Canada's roots in anti-Black racism, and an opportunity for healing for people of African descent across Canada. The federal recognition of Emancipation Day falls into the recommendations outlined by the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. The 3 pillars identified that will facilitate real change for people of African descent are recognition, justice, and development. Emancipation Day is about the recognition of harms still experienced from Canada's history of slavery. This day is about celebrating the freedom of our ancestors, and most importantly, it is about continued liberation in all areas of our lives. The annual Emancipation Day celebrations set the tone in our communities needed to bring about justice and development for our bright futures. This Council's support for the federal recognition of Emancipation Day would serve as a model example for communities across Canada. Given the rich history of Black Canadians in Chatham-Kent and the important work that the Wish Centre continues to do with youth and the community, your support would send a strong message that their lives matter. Municipalities do not have to wait for federal recognition of Emancipation Day. A positive vote for this motion by Chatham-Kent Council could lead other towns and cities across Canada to do the same. Sincerely, the Honourable Wanda Thomas Bernard.
The third deputation is by Deirdre McCorkindale, a member of the Chatham-Kent Black Historical Society. My name is Deirdre McCorkindale, and I am writing to you on behalf of the Chatham-Kent Black Historical Society. The CKBHS wishes to convey our support for Councillor Marjorie Crew's motion brought forth to the Council on June 29th, which would give municipal backing towards Bill M36, which would recognize Emancipation Day nationally. To briefly summarize, Emancipation Day celebrates the end of slavery in the British Empire by way of the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 that came into effect in Canada on August 1st, 1834. While Ontario already recognizes this day, it is imperative that this municipality voices its support for Bill M36 because of Chatham's rich history of anti-slavery activism and abolitionism and our own Black community's historic celebrations of this day. Chatham-Kent has records of Black citizens celebrating Emancipation Day that go all the way back to the 1840s. The Black people of Chatham-Kent would gather, along with visitors from the United States and surrounding communities, to march in parades, have meals, dance, and give speeches. In some cases, thousands of people would travel to Chatham to commemorate this day. Emancipation Day is of great significance to Chatham's Black community because it was a special day of celebration, but also a day of reflection and protest. Emancipation Day was used to discuss the horrors of slavery, to work on abolishing it in other parts of the world, and to highlight the racial injustices which have still not been overcome in Chatham's Black community, such as segregation and job discrimination. To have a day of celebration and protest recognized nationally is exactly what the country needs right now in the turmoil of racial injustice that deeply impacts our society. This motion is coming forward at the correct time during the Black Lives Matter demonstrations, which are trying to bring awareness to anti-Black racism in the United States and also in Canada. One of the biggest barriers to overcoming racial injustice in Canada is a lack of awareness and understanding about systemic racism. The CKBHS experiences this regularly when we attempt to educate visitors to the museum about the Black community and its history in Chatham. Canadians are often under the impression that Canada is a country with no history of colonialism, slavery, or segregation, when this is unarguably not the case. A great number of Canadians not believing in the existence of the very building blocks of institutionalized racism prevents the formation or even the conceptualization of any real solutions to overcoming institutionalized racism. In short, Canadians cannot begin to address the problems of racism if they continue to think that these problems are new to the 21st century or are outright fabrications rather than being grounded firmly in historical fact. Recognizing Emancipation Day may seem to be a purely symbolic action, but it is actually a powerful first step towards remedying this problem. Observing Emancipation Day nationally would mean a national acknowledgement of slavery in this country and will open the door to deeper conversations of this nation's past, present, and future in regards to racial justice. We hope that you will consider voting for this motion and choose to help to make Chatham a leader in the ongoing fight against anti-Black racism. Your support in granting national recognition to Emancipation Day would be a significant boon in our ongoing efforts to educate and promote progress and racial equality in this community and the efforts of organizations like us throughout the country as a whole. Sincerely, Deirdre McCorkindale.
Okay, we're going to move into the consent agenda. We'll put up there the items that you are voting on right now. These items have not been pulled and will not be discussed beyond the approval here. Madam Clerk, do you want to go through those?
Yes, so if council wants to follow and check out on their agendas. So the ones we will be approving now under one motion will be 11A, 11B, 11C, 11D, 11E, 11F, and 11G, 12A, 12B, 13B, 14A, 14B, 14C, 15B, 15C, 17A, 17B, 17D, 17E, 18F, 18H, 18I, 18J, 18K, 18L, 18M, 18N, 18O, 18P, and 18Q.
Councillor Pinson and Councillor Thompson, I'll get you, the two of you, to put this on the floor, please.
So moved. And seconded.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll put it to vote.
We're missing one vote. Okay, all votes are in. Motion passes.
Move to item 13, information reports.
So 13A, Corporate Annual Report 2019.
Councillor Hall and Councillor Finn, can I get the two of you to put this on the floor, please?
Yes, happy to move, Mayor Kenneth.
Happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm not sure what page it's on, but it's the page that references the performance indicators. And there is a reference on that page to the various indicators under 2019 saying that information will be coming in summer of 2020. And I'm just wondering whether any of this data or some of this data is available now since it is summer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Amy Wilcox speaking. I believe you're talking about the page Financial Sustainability Performance Indicators. Indicators are outstanding debt, financial position, assessment growth, reserve to debt ratio, unpaid property taxes, and debt as a percentage of debt capacity.
Yes,
I would defer. I will defer to Matt Torrance. I believe he was going to be maybe speaking to some of this later on in this council meeting.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. We do have a presentation tonight that will be coming up next in regards to our 2019 audited financial statements. we did not want to include the 2019 financial indicators in the report until council had an opportunity to approve the 2019 financial statements. Once those statements are approved tonight, we'll be able to pass those financial indicators along to Amy, that she'll be able to, I presume you're posting on the website, Amy. Perhaps you can update it on the website when those are available.
You are correct, Matt. We will be updating that information, making it accessible, and then putting the annual report onto the corporate municipal website.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Anyone opposed to receiving this report? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item 15, Finance, Budget, Information Technology, and Transformation.
15A, 2019 Audited Financial Statements. We have a presentation by Matt Torrance, Director of Financial Services.
Before I begin, Judy, can you just confirm that you can see my screen?
So right now we can see the screen. We can see it set up with the next slide, but it is.
Hang on.
That does work, Matt. We can see the screen. Yep.
Okay, I'll proceed. So thank you, Mayor Caniff and Council. Today I'll provide you with a brief overview of our 2019 audited financial statements. 2019 was the second year of our 5-year contract with Deloitte for the municipality's annual audit. Chatham-Kent received an unqualified audit opinion, meaning that Deloitte has concluded that our financial statements present fairly the financial results of Chatham-Kent's operations and its financial position according to generally accepted accounting principles. During tonight's presentation, we'll provide a brief overview and items of interest on our financial statements, including debt, reserves, accrual versus cash accounting, and our financial position. Chatham-Kent's consolidated financial statements consist of 5 fully consolidated boards and commissions, including the library, police, PUC, public health, and drainage, along with 2 government business enterprises, Integris and WDC Rail. In accordance with public sector accounting, the Public Sector Accounting Board, the consolidated financial statements must include the following 4 statements: the statement of financial position, also known as a balance sheet, the statement of operations and accumulated surplus, commonly referred to as an income statement, the statement of changes in net financial assets, and the statement of cash flows. On the statement of financial position, we have highlighted in 2019, the municipality's $30 million principally guaranteed pooled investments with CIBC Wood Gundy realized a gain on investment of $970,000. One of the requirements of the public sector accounting standards is that obligatory reserve funds be reported as deferred revenue. This requirement is in place as provincial legislation restricts how these funds may be used, and under certain circumstances, these funds may possibly be refunded. In 2019, the municipality recorded a $10 million increase in deferred revenue due to a $10 million increase in the obligatory reserve fund related to the federal gas tax program. And finally, our debt has decreased by $10 million, which I will discuss over the next few slides. So the municipality's long-term debt has a total of $66.7 million. Of this, $39 million is attributable to the Public Utilities Commission, and the debt payments are funded through water and sewer rates. Of the remaining $27.7 million, $15.7 million is covered by senior government funding, and this leaves $12 million to be funded by the general tax base. This equates to roughly $115 of tax-funded debt per resident of Chatham-Kent. As you can see in this slide, the graph, the municipality continues to pay down our debt, reducing our debt load from $161 million in 2010 to $67 million in 2019. If the municipality does not incur any new debt this year, we will further decrease that to $57 million. The PUC debt is represented in blue. It has decreased from $89 million in 2010 to $39 million in 2019. And the municipal general tax base and other senior government funded debts represented in green have decreased from 72 million in 2010 to 28 million in 2019. So this is looking at reserves. So this depicts a trend in our reserve balances, is reflective of our net contributions to reserve, which are the contributions into the reserves less the use of reserves. In 2019, reserves continued to grow, increasing our reserve to debt ratio to 2.7 to 1. This is up from 0.4 to 1 in 2010. In 2019, our reserves increased by $11 million, while operating expenses increased by $22 million on an accrual basis. This caused our total reserves as a percentage of expenses to remain the same as in 2018. This financial indicator shows us how much money is set aside for our future needs. The increase in reserves can be used to assist council with meeting their strategic objectives and provide the ability to fund major capital projects while incurring little to no further debt. So this factor of 52% would be regarded as low risk by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, as they consider anything over 20% to be low risk. So we're well above that low risk threshold. As per Public Sector Accounting Board standards, Chatham-Kent needs to present our financial statements on an accrual basis. This slide displays the reconciliation from an accrual surplus to a cash surplus. As an example, in accrual basis accounting, amortization for capital assets is recorded as an expense, whereas under the cash basis, amortization is not a cash outlay. The cash outlay is at the time when the asset is purchased. Chatham-Kent's annual budget is prepared on a cash basis, as we're concerned with the amount of funds we receive and how we intend to spend the funds during the year. Our financial statements, conversely, are prepared on an accrual basis to ensure that we are in compliance with the aforementioned accounting standards. Municipality's 2019 cash surplus of $3.8 million is primarily attributable to Chatham-Kent's $970,000 gain on the investment, interest revenue on bank balances, new assessment revenues related to the Gateway Casino, as well as operational surpluses in municipal departments such as planning, legal, the Provincial Offences Court, and financial services. Finally, net financial assets, or net debt, is a measurement of our future revenues required to pay for past transactions or events. A net debt position means that we would require future revenues to pay for past expenses. Our $158 million net asset position indicates that our assets exceed our liabilities, and hence our past transactions are not negatively impacting our future revenue requirements. This value increased by $23 million over 2018. And this graph kind of highlights the trend of the net financial assets. Chatham-Kent was in a net financial debt position prior to 2014. As you can see, it has improved to a strong net financial asset position, increasing by $227 million since 2010. And that concludes my presentation.
Councillor Solomon and Councillor B. McGregor, can I get you to put on the floor, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move acceptance of the 2019 financial statements.
And I'll second that.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. Next item is 15D, update financial resiliency in COVID-19.
Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Latimer, can I get the two of you to put this on the floor, please?
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Okay, I've got questions from Councillor Latimer, Councillor Hall, and Councillor Sakachi. So we'll start with Councillor Latimer.
Thank you. The Mayor,
Sorry, Councillor Latimer, can I interrupt you for a second? The clerk tells me we need a 2/3 for this.
Sure.
So Council, as you are aware, this is something that we voted on a few months ago. as far as the last council meeting, we had a 2/3 vote to vote for some things that had changed during stage 2. And now here are some further items that may change, that could change now if you so wish. And so in order to discuss that, we require a 2/3 vote for a motion to reconsider.
Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Latimer, can we each put that on the floor, please?
I'm happy to, Mayor Caniff.
Happy to second.
All right, any questions related to the 2/3? If you take your hands off on the screen there. Council, okay, seeing no questions, we'll put that to vote.
All votes are in and motion passes. So we can continue, Mayor Caniff. Councillor Latimer, we can't hear you.
I just wanted to ask, with regard to the arena, are they what are they currently used for? I know that the numbers are up, or at least par last year, because I was speaking with Councillor Sakachi, and both of us wondered if we open that arena, viewing the other ones aren't open, and neighboring arenas may not be open. How would the historically the allocation policy be affected? Because through Councillor Sakachi, I'm understanding that AAA calls and often gotten the preferred ice time. Would this continue? And the other is I really would like an update with regard to use of the J.D. Bradley Center and the shelter. How are those two supposed to, are they going to be coexisting? And what's the plan there?
Hi, it's Jeff Bray. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can, Jeff.
Yeah, to answer about the arena, we're trying to find out what the usage is. We're willing to work with groups. We typically, through the ice allocation, we would have completed this a couple months ago. Obviously, we haven't. But we're looking at, once this motion passes, reaching out to groups, see what their expectations are. I think that we should remove the penalty to cancel ice time for obvious reasons. And we'll go from there to determine the level of usage. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
It does. Thank you, Jeff.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Point of order, I thought I asked the question with regard to the shelter.
Oh, sorry. April, did you want to answer that, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So I can answer part of this. I think I'll rely maybe on my colleague Gord Quinton in terms of the Bradley Center. For the shelter, we are actively looking right now, working with my staff to find another location, and we hope to have a report back to council in the August council meeting, where council will then provide us direction as to where we will temporarily relocate to. So hopefully we will be back soon with what our recommendations are in terms of alternative locations. And I'll I don't know if Gord has anything to add in terms of the front part of the Bradley Center. I'll let him chime in about that.
Hi, and I apologize. I had some technical difficulties for a second there that I might have missed part of the conversation. But I have been in conversations with Andy Davidson at the Bradley. He does have, of course, has some concerns, I guess, with more of the image of Chatham-Kent as he hosts meetings at the front end of the Bradley Center. But temporarily, those are things that we can work together on until there's another, until April's report comes and council decides where perhaps a more appropriate area for the shelter might be.
Do we have people asking us to use that center? Because I'm wondering if we shouldn't waylay that until we have our plans in place and mitigation efforts underway.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yes, we, as soon as the province announced the increase up from 10 to 50, the Bradley Center was instantly receiving inquiries and desires to book meetings and other events. They're still required to meet at socially distanced areas, but some of the meeting rooms that normally would hold 75 to 100 people can easily still accommodate 30 people socially distanced. And there actually has been quite a bit of interest since the province went up to 50.
Well, that's great to hear. And I have full confidence that April and her team will be working with the Bradley Center, and we'll manage that as well as we can. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Mayor Caniff, if I can interject on another issue, like I said, I lost my audio for a second, but I was looking to alter the motion number 4 before it was put on the floor. Instead of opening the Blenheim Arena, it was to be changed to open one arena by mid-August. And either Jeff Bray or Thomas Kelly can comment to the reasoning for that, but that is a change that we wanted in the motion that's on the floor.
The Councillor C. McGregor and Councillor Adam, are you good with that change?
I'm okay, Mayor Caniff.
Sure, I'll hear
Mayor
what
Caniff.
they have to say.
Mayor Caniff, if I could just add to this point, our demand right now is all over the place. It's Thomas Kelly, General Manager of IES. Our demand is very much up and down and changing very rapidly. So what we would like to do is to change to say opening one arena by mid-August with the option to expand based on demand. And the reason we're asking for that is that right now we really have almost no demand. We have a couple of requests for some schools for short term, but this would allow us to just gauge what the demand will be and take the appropriate action as required. Otherwise, the way it reads now, we have to come back to each council meeting every time we wish to open another arena. So our request is to just change that, if agreeable to council, to say open one arena. Blenheim may not be the best choice, and that's why. Dresden is also a strong alternative. We just want to choose an arena that's going to be used the most and is centrally located, and also have the flexibility as the demand changes, that we could open that up as well. So the opening of one arena by mid-August with the option to expand openings based on demand is our request.
Okay, the mover and seconder, are you okay with this one, this change?
Yes, I'm okay with it.
Councillor
And
Latimer?
I am as well. Yes,
All right.
I am as well.
So we're good with that. So we're going to move Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I have a few comments and questions to staff regarding the arena component of this report as well. So this is from information from the Wallaceburg Minor Hockey Association, which I'm sure applies to other hockey groups across Chatham-Kent. So they say as of right now that the Ontario Minor Hockey Association isn't letting any of its members do any hockey-related events on or off the ice. They're not allowed to take any monies from players signing up, as they do not know how long the season will be. That is why at this point they can't book any ice. Their registration numbers are down at this time. Obviously, they really don't know how much ice they need at this point. So my first question, I think, was already answered by Mr. Bray regarding the penalty. I'm also happy to hear that the engagement with groups will take place once we pass this motion and move towards the fall. But one other question, this was from once again, the Walsford Minor Hockey Association, in terms of cleaning the arena once things do open up. So is Chatham-Kent willing to have extra staff on to make sure that the cleaning will be completed in a timely manner? Walsford Minor Hockey says they would hope that the municipality wouldn't expect the volunteers from the arena users to help with this. Can someone from staff address this or talk about this point?
Hi, Jeff Bray here again. Yeah, we've already started working on our COVID protocols, and staff will be on hand to assist with cleaning and monitoring usage throughout this period.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Bray, and thank you for the time, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Scotchy, followed by Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, through your worship, to Mr. Bray, and I do apologize because my notes are kind of all over the place and some of my comments have been touched on. So my questions to Mr. Bray is, I know we spoke a little bit about the allocation aspects. So regardless, now that it's changed, which I mean, you know, obviously being in South Kent, it's challenging because a lot of these questions were directed that this was Blenheim, and now we're changing it on the fly. But I do understand that. So the allocation process, is everybody going to have a fair play at those aspects, or are the travel teams and AAA teams going to be given the select opportunity to allocate first? How is that process going to work?
The process we're going to take is first to see what their needs are. My understanding is, I may be wrong here, so but the travel teams will not be traveling. And so I don't know if they're going to, there is no regular play at this time, as Councillor Hall alluded to, and that goes across the board. So at this point, we just want to see what the level of usage is, and we will accommodate people accordingly. This is not cast in stone, so if they get this premier ice allocation this season, it won't be the same next season. We'll go through the regular process. Hopefully we're back into some semblance of normalcy next year. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Councillor.
Well, I know that last year you guys did a fantastic job of meeting with the different groups and speaking of their needs and the the concerns they had, and I know that yourself and your team do a very good job. A couple concerns that I do have, and I'm not sure if this is going to require a motion or not, but we touched base last year regarding the 2-year ice time, basically trying a reduced rate for 2 years. And I would really like to see us extend that by a year, because I don't think that this year is going to give us a good scope of the issues that in the enrollment that's going to transpire. So, is that something that you're going to consider when you're reevaluating this year?
That's correct. Last year when we had the reduced ice rates, we're going to come back in the fall and report to council to see if they'd wish to continue the rates. We will do that. We're scheduling that for September. Also, it's important to note too, with what we're planning moving forward with arena usage, is to control usage is at this point, this can change, of course, but there's no use of the dressing rooms. So that's something groups have to come to grips with. This is common throughout other rinks where people have to come in, they can put their skates on, and this will assist with staff maintaining a clean environment for all the users.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. And I guess another comment that I had from the community as well is the outside groups that are, existing outside of our municipality. Is all our internal organizations and groups going to be allowed to basically allocate that? You're going to allocate that to the inside groups prior to any maybe municipalities that are in phase 2 that have no arenas open yet? Is that something that you're considering as well to keep this, to our residents initially, if it does rent to all out?
That's correct. CK residents would get first consideration.
Thank you. And I do want to add, though, I was in a conversation with some people that are on the board of South Kent Minor Hockey, and their enrollment is actually around par to where it was last year. So that's a very good sign. And I just want to ensure that, I know that you guys do a very good job at looking at all these things. And I just want to ensure that, to Thomas's point, is the busiest arena, or the one that's going to, allocate the most ice, is not necessarily going to be the central point. So, I'm hoping from a rural councillor that just because Chatham is the center point, if one of the other ones endeavors to get more ice, that we're ensuring that we're going to be following that, not just the centralized aspect.
Point taken.
And then I do have a comment for April. I just wanted to see if April could just comment, since we've had a lot of conversation about the libraries. If you can just kind of give me us as council a briefing of how the library process went. I know some people have asked a lot of questions to me in our ward regarding the library here. It's nice to see it's opening a little bit earlier than initially thought. But can you just give us a really brief rundown of how you guys made that decision regarding holding off certain aspects and opening in specific ones?
Through you, Mayor Kenneth. Thank you, Councillor Sakachi, for the question. I think that to keep this short, we really looked. Tanya Sharp, our chief librarian, spent a significant amount of time developing her opening plan so that she was ready the second that the province moved forward with moving from stage 1 to stage 2, now stage 3. So she has taken a really hard look at all of our library locations. She went through the libraries really with ensuring that both library patrons and our staff would be safe and able to really function well, and with COVID-19 ever present. So curbside pickup was, as everyone's aware, in our 4 largest branches. That has gone very, very smoothly. We originally felt that Dresden and Blenheim, we would have a bit more difficulty in terms of setting up curbside, of ensuring a touchless transaction. We've been able to do some workarounds. Tanya's done some great work being able to do that. And so we look forward to moving curbside to Dresden and Blenheim at the beginning of August. And then we will look at, as we move forward, heading into September, whether or not we can increase curbside to our other branches, or whether or not we have systems in place to ensure, like I said already, the safety of patrons and staff. And we will look at where opening branches completely fits into that continuum. In stage 3, anything that a patron touches, so if they handle a book, if they handle a video, all has to be disinfected or quarantined, and we need some time to put that kind of system in place before we can open to the public. So I hope that helps. If I don't answer.
No, that was actually perfect. I think it's just important for some of the community to hear that. Another question to yourself. I have two more quick ones, and then that is it for myself. Can you just give a little update on the pools? We've had a lot of people that are inquiring to council or to myself, I know in Ward 2 regarding the pool aspects. Can you just speak to the public a little bit where we're at with that, and maybe if Mr. Kelly, would give an estimate, especially the indoor pools, how fast that they would take to basically start to be utilized, or maybe Mr. Bray?
I can take that. I know that our pools are ready to go. They probably within a week or two.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. And then my last question, you did touch on this, Mr. Bray, was the cancellation aspect. Yep. Do we require a motion at this time to be put in this report regarding the cancellation fee? Because that was one of the things on the list as well. Because if something happens where there is a negative impact regarding having to cancel or them having to cancel due to safety issues, I think it's important that cancel. It's very it's very detailed that they're able to cancel without any penalty. Do you require that to be in this report?
Judy, is this part of the fee bylaw?
So there is the user fee bylaw, and this would be a line in it. I'd have to pull it up to see it, though.
So it would require an amendment or a motion here.
So Councillor Sakachi, can you just repeat the line that you would be looking to amend? I can't hear anything from either Jeff or Councillor Sakachi if one is talking.
Sorry, Judy, I apologize. So I would need the bylaw, the wording of the bylaw to amend that. There's no actual wording in this report. So I just would like to amend that bylaw temporarily just through COVID to ensure that the users are not seeing a cancellation fee if something happens because of a safety concern or an issue in the community.
So the user fee bylaw wouldn't have to be amended. It would just have to be a motion if that's what you were speaking to, Jeff.
That's what I was suggesting. Could we bring this to August? We should have a better idea what usage is then too.
That's fine as long as it's not going to be you can assure there's nothing's going to be rented out in that time. I just don't want to see someone hit with a cancellation fee in the meantime.
Understood.
Okay, so we'll come back to the August meeting. Mr. Shropshire, did you want to comment on something?
Thank you, Worship. I don't think there's any intent from administration to charge a cancellation fee. I think that's what Mr. Bray was intending. And if we do require any additional approvals from council, then we can come back to you on August 10th. But right now, we'd move ahead with the assumption that there are no additional fees. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Scotchy, is that all your questions?
That's all. I'm sorry for the length. My apologies. Appreciate that, sir.
Councillor Solomons, our last one.
Well, Mayor Canna, sorry, it's April. Before we move on from this, can I just place one more comment regarding pools?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I just want to, while Jeff has indicated that pools will be ready to open within a week, I just want council to be aware that that's from the facility side of pools. We would have to look at all of our staff, making sure all of our staff were good and ready and back at work in terms of getting those pools open. Right now, Dr. Colby is maintaining municipal pools remain closed for the foreseeable future. We'll be meeting with Evelyn Bish, director in our CALS area, to look at our reopening plan, most likely for sometime in the fall. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Worship. April just took care of one of the three items I was going to speak to. I did have a concern when I heard about opening of pools, unless there's a very specific plan that can allow for distancing. But she's taking care of that. The second issue I had was on the paragraph 4, which was the opening of one arena. I'm pleased to see that it got changed. On the other hand, I would simply ask that staff simply act as if there is no ward system, and wouldn't that be nice? And just be blind to geographic boundaries and select whatever location will serve the greatest number of our citizens. That should be the first and primary concern. On the second issue that I had was 15D, and that is opening the Bradley Center. I'm not as confident as Councillor Latimer. I'm of the mind, and I don't think there have been any bookings. Gord, you could correct me, there may be inquiries, but there haven't been any bookings that I'm aware of. And I'm of the same mind as the manager out there, Andy Davidson, that we shouldn't be moving forward at this point. It's a question of marketing and the image of Chatham-Kent and preserving our brand image, because right now, I don't know about other councillors, but I get complaints on a daily basis. And I just don't see the point in making that decision, the costs that come with it for the cleaning, until we get our August report that says where the temporary shelter will be moving. I'm not confident that anyone would want to book in the current state. And I'm not sure, and I agree with Andy Davidson that if someone did, it doesn't, he has an issue with the marketing image. And I agree with him on that issue. I think the other thing we should be aware of with respect to the opening of the Bradley Center, I hope you read the reports, financial reports that we've had that indicate that we're anticipating a loss of about $350,000 this year on the Bradley Center. It was to break even, but with the COVID-19 situation and the temporary shelter being there, there won't be any car shows and things like that. So I just don't see why we would open it until we know the answer on the new location for the temporary shelter. I don't know whether Gord wants to comment on that or not, but it just seems to me that there's going to be other costs, and how likely is it that anyone will actually rent at that point in time when, the neighboring properties are complaining about assaults, broken antennas on cars, needles, human waste being around. I just don't see why we'd want to have the marketing image harmed by that. And I also, quite frankly, don't see until that situation gets straightened out, I don't see one of our big revenue sources, which is the casino and the Match restaurant, opening until we get that issue resolved. So I think they all sort of go hand in hand. Anyway, that's my feeling on it. And if I would like to hear from Gord or financial people with respect to that.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Councillor Solomon, you're right. What the Bradley Center has been telling me as they have had quite a few inquiries, but the second question is always, what about the shelter? And however, I'm not sure on the timeline, until we get to the August 10th meeting and decisions are made, and then, implementation timelines of whatever decisions those are for whatever we do for shelters. Right now, I don't have a timeline of how many months that will be. That we'll still have to have the temporary shelter at the Bradley Convention Center. So with that being said, we were looking for opportunities where people were willing to book meetings to get some revenue into the center. There would have to be some extra security details when those meetings are being held. And we've talked with April's team about that. But it does basically come down to that image issue. And, we're asking to open it up to be able to book some meetings to bring in some revenue, but there is the negative image aspect of it.
Well, I also assume, thank you for that information. I also assume there's some offsetting costs, because if you're going to open the front part, that's part of the entrance. But you also have staffing issues, don't you? I mean, you're going to have to clean it differently than you do now.
Correct. As far as Compass's operations, they have now totally changed as of COVID-19 as well. When they do open up, for example, their buffets aren't allowed anymore. So it has to be, the meal service has to be by waiter, so it changes their costs. The bathrooms have to be cleaned more often. There's a wiping down door entranceways and things of that nature. So it would change their cost structure, and it's doubtful in this environment that they'd be able to pass that on to the customer much. So that will be an issue at any convention meeting room center across Canada, right? The Compass Group is dealing with that at their other operations as well. It's going to be a tough couple of years for them, I think, until the vaccines and all clear come along.
But my point is that I'm still getting complaints, and I don't know about other councillors, of needles being found all over in the area. I've heard of one assault, people using the fountain at the front improperly. I'm just not sure that we want to if we're trying to use this as a marketing tool to say, or as a gem, saying how bringing people to Chatham. I'm not Chatham-Kent. I'm not sure that it's the right time to be doing it, but I've said enough. That's it.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 16, Chief Administrative Office.
16A, Together CK Events Grant 2020 funding recommendations.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor McGrail, can I get the two of you to put it on the floor, please?
Sure, I'll put it on the floor.
Oh.
I will second it.
Okay. I have questions from Councillor Hall, and then Councillor Kirkwood-White and Councillor Harrigan. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Yeah, actually, I was going to just put a different motion on the floor. but maybe now I'll just make an amendment to remove the Pumpkin Fest grant allocation from the report. If I can get a seconder, I'll comment further.
Councillor C. McGregor, will you second that?
Yes, I will, Mayor Caniff.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Kemp. Yeah, just very quickly, I heard from the Wolfsburg Kinsman Club once this report went public, and they informed me that their annual Pumpkin Fest event is going to be canceled this year due to COVID-19. So we thought it was appropriate to remove them from the recommendations. Thank you.
Could I ask the Councillor Thompson and Councillor McGrail to just, if that's a friendly amendment, well, then we just have to vote once.
Yeah, that's friendly by me. I don't even see it in the application in number 2 anyway.
I'm good with it also.
Okay. Perfect. Any Councillor Hall, anything else?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood-White, then Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the other front, I would like to mention that a couple of councillors were notified when this report became public. We received a note from the CK Scooter Festival Committee that the event was listed as canceled, and it has not been canceled. So if we could add back $2,469 to the amount that has been recommended for approval. And I also have another revision or amendment I'd like to make to the motion as well. There have been a number of councillors who were copied on correspondence between the manager of corporate initiatives and the members of the committee. And I would like to encourage the fact that a meeting be held between the Together CK committee and interested municipal councillors to review the existing committee terms of reference and to evaluate and confirm the allocation process for distribution of funds by local citizens to local nonprofit organizations. There seems to be some need to have a conversation with the committee members about the process that's being followed. And I would like to add that as an amendment to the motion that's being proposed.
The mover and shaker, or the mover and seconder on this one, are you okay with the first one adding back in the Scooter Festival, and then adding in just a request for the councillors to meet? That would be item number 3.
I mean, do we have the money for it? Just adding something back in, I don't know why it was taken out. I could use some more details, but I mean, in general, I'm okay with it.
Okay, I'll go to
clarification.
All right, once we get this sorted out, I'll come back to you, Councillor Thompson. You can make sure you ask that question. Councillor McGrail, you okay with adding that in?
Well, I think I'm not too sure on that, because that third, like the second piece to that is a whole different thing that we're talking about right now.
Okay, why don't we then have that separate?
Yes, okay. I think
Yes.
that's proper.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood-White, could you send the clerk the wording for that? What we'll do is we'll have a separate motion to talk about that.
I did, Your Worship. I've already sent it through.
All right, so we'll proceed on with this one, then Councillor Kirkwood-White will entertain your motion to the other. And I question whether it needs to be a motion. I go to Mr. Shropshire and ask if he could make sure that happens one way or the other. We'll sort that out after we sort out the vote on this one. Okay. Okay, so we have Councillor Kirkwhite, do you have any other questions?
I do not at this time.
Okay, so we got Councillor Harrigan, then I'll go back to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. My question, I believe, is directed to the CAO. Don, could you or Amy please clarify the financial implications section of the report? Because I noticed there is some discrepancy between the recommendations of administration and what the committee had recommended. And I think it's important for us to discuss that in open.
Thank you, Councillor Harrigan. It's Don Shropshire, the CAO speaking. The process that was used, the committee had reviewed and made recommendations to approve all of the significant and community events that we understood were going to go forward at the time that the applications were reviewed. There was an additional recommendation from the committee members that's detailed in the financial implications, and that was that any unused portions of the funds that were approved in our budget would be rolled over to be considered for other future events. Council can appreciate that there were a number of events canceled due to COVID-19, and the expectation that those funds, how they would be disposed of, the committee was clearly recommending that they be rolled over for use in future events. Administration, I wrote to the committee members who had expressed some concerns earlier today, and just to clarify that the recommendation from administration is to not make that decision this evening. The reason being is we have a significant financial shortfall as a result of the COVID response. In May, we came forward with a projected deficit of somewhere in the $2 million to $5 million range. I explained to the community members that there is a requirement for municipalities to run a balanced budget, and that we had been taking some extraordinary steps to try and find ways to limit the financial deficit that the municipality was projecting, including some of the conversations we've had this evening. So the recommendation from administration was not to support that recommendation from committee at this time, but rather to wait until we had a better picture of our financial deficit, and then to determine at that time whether we could reallocate funds for different community events. Obviously, the community would love to have some ways to have some fun. They've been restricted to a great deal over the last several months, but the reality is we have to run a balanced budget, and at this time I can't or in good conscience recommend that we make further commitments until we've got a confirmed plan that we're going to be able to address the deficit. I think the comments that Councillor Kirkwood-White made, I respect that the committee has had some challenges over the last year, and I think a lot of that has to be, I would encourage us to have a conversation about the terms of reference for the committee, because I know at various times they feel like they haven't received administration's full support, and I think that's worthy of a hearing. I got a lot of respect for where the committee has done their work. They're a highly dedicated team of people. The challenge we've had is it's making recommendations to administration, then we're presenting the recommendations to council. And there have been a couple of instances over the past several months where administration has taken a different perspective in terms of how things have been managed. And I think clearing the air, as Councillor Kirkwood-White has suggested, is very appropriate. And I would welcome any opportunity to participate in that or to hear their recommendations. Councillor Harrigan, I hope that answered your question. If not, I'm happy to add some additional information.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. Just wanted to comment that I very much appreciate those comments. I think really every organization, right down to the individual households right now, are at a point where we're watching how we're spending in light of unknowns due to COVID-19. And so I think that while I certainly agree that more community events and community activity is certainly better for our COVID recovery, when it comes to these types of decisions, as a council, we really need to be prudent in what it is that we're spending our dollars on and making sure we're making informed choices based on what our budget is going to be this year, given we cannot run a deficit. So thank you very much. I appreciate that response. Those are all my questions.
Okay, Councillor Thompson, followed by Councillor Solomon.
To be honest, I've had a chance to just reread over the report. I've answered my own question. I'm okay with the Scooter Fest. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Solomon.
Is it appropriate at this time? I mean, I heard about this, what is it, something that the Scooter Festival? Is that what it is? That Councillor Kirkwood White wants to add back in, or is proposing to add back in. If I got the right term of reference?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, so your worship, I think we should hear from Ms. Wilcox in that respect. My understanding is the Scooter Festival is a summertime event. And so I mean, before we add anything in, I think we should hear from staff. What's going on.
Okay, Ms. Wilcox, can you respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Solomon, for the opportunity to receive clarification for myself based on Councillor Kirkwood White's recommendation to have CK Scooter Festival. That is as you mentioned, a summertime event. If we were to, if we were to bring it back in, since it is a summer event, would that mean that any of the other events that were considered summertime that were canceled, again, with the understanding that they did not cancel, but we do have some other events that were scheduled for the summertime, would those need to be added back in as well?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand what that meant. Are you saying the scooter people didn't cancel, but there's
They
other...
did not cancel. They,
I'm
however,
sorry, I
their
can't
event,
clarify. I don't know.
their
I'm
event
sorry, I didn't
was
understand you.
Councillor Solomon, Amy
Yep.
Wilcox speaking.
Yes.
CK Festival, the Scooter Festival was scheduled for the summertime. They did not cancel. However, events that were held in the summer due to social distancing, for those that many have been canceled. And so my concern is if we were to add this one back in, since we're still summertime, does that mean we would we be adding the others in as well? So there would be a larger financial implication.
So can I go back to Councillor Kirkwood White? Did you hear specifically from them that they will be having the event, or are they just not sure yet? Can you clarify that, please?
Yep, I'd be happy to clarify it. The email came through. Hello, although we indicated that our event was not canceled for 2020, it has been listed as canceled in the report going to council on Monday, July 20. We are still unsure of whether the event will run this year. Which means to me that they may want to have it in the fall if possible.
Okay. So then I guess proceeding forward, can we stick with this one, adding this in? If there are any events that actually go, we can address it accordingly. Any events that were accepted through the committee, if any of them actually do go, we can come back and approve the funds accordingly, given that they're we're not doing anything with it right now. Is that reasonable?
Well, what I was trying to understand, Your Worship, in asking the question was, there are others that have been they may not have called in and said they're canceled, but they've been canceled as a result of COVID-19. And we're at different stages, as you're well aware, during the planning process. So I'm just wondering if we say, okay, you get a second shot at it, to say maybe now you want to do it in the fall. I'm not talking about the Scooter Festival. I'm just wondering, does it reopen? Does it ultimately reopen this for others who say, oh, I know mine was a summertime event, but now I'll do the fall? I don't know. I just wanted clarification, but I think it got foggier as I went.
And certainly with this moving forward, I think all of us would like to see all these events go. Because of COVID, they're not. This is Ms. Wilcox's best guess based on discussions with everyone of the ones that we can take out for now. And yes, some of them may not have officially said it, but given their summer events, I would just suggest that if an event that's not on here that was actually approved by the committee comes back and says, you know what, I'm going to do it in October, and they can, I think we just come back to council and say, here's your $3,000 or something, if they're going to actually have the event this calendar year. Does that help clarify that, Councillor Solomon?
I'm finished.
Ms. Wilcox?
Just for clarification, so for example, an event that did cancel because they were in the summer, if they feel that they could plan and have the event in the fall, would they contact me and I would then write a report and come back to council, or because they were already recommended by the review committee, would I be allowed just to release the funds to them without having to come back to council?
Thank you, Worship. We need direction from council as to how you'd like to manage that, Art. I think the understanding that we had, as Councillor Solomon had described, an event was either not going to be allowed to function because we were in a we had limitations on the that we were able to attend events and so on. That was one of the reasons they could be canceled. In a number of cases, we had community organizers contact the municipality and say that they could not organize it. There was a third case where people said we're going to postpone it, as you described, Mayor Caniff, that they were going to postpone their event until later on in the year. What we've tried, and the intent has been, everybody that was able to host an event safely, given the public health requirements, and everybody that had intended to run their event this year and that were recommended by the committee would receive funding. There's not an attempt to try and restrict that. The recommendations you see before are based on the best information we had, that what would be allowed to run and what wouldn't, and what had received the committee's recommendations. So I would say at this point, if council wants to give us direction to go ahead, if we get we'd be happy to either return to council to seek your direction, or you could give us direction and authority to approve those that were recommended by the committee and that are allowed to run.
Can I suggest to try and simplify this and move it on? Can we just add in saying any events that step forward that are approved by the committee, will be funded if the event goes ahead this year, and just administration can go ahead and do that? Is that I think that would take care of that and give administration the flexibility to deal with any of them as long as they've been approved by the committee. Councillor Thompson, Councillor McGrail, are you okay with this change?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one too.
All right, so we're just in the process of adding that to number 2, or make it number 3, whichever you'd like. We're just drafting that up now. Councillor Pinsino, while we're waiting to draft that up, you had a question?
Yes, I'd just like to have number 3 separated out. And the reason I say that is, do we want everybody now having a full program going on? I just, we have a process set up here. They were summer programs. Anyway, I'm not going to support number 3, and I'd like it to be separated out. Thank you.
Okay, we'll put that as item 3 and separate it. All right, so we've got 1 and 2. We're waiting to put number 3 up. So seeing no other questions for 1 and 2, we'll put that to vote, and then we'll vote on number 3 separately. That'll come up on the screen shortly.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Okay,
And
we'll
And council, for number 3, the webinar that we use only allows so many votes. And because we've used the maximum votes, this number 3 will have to do by basically a show of hands, or the mayor will ask if there's anyone opposed. And if you can raise your hand if you're opposed, then I can look at the vote that way. So we'll put number 3 up.
Okay, so we'll put number 3 up and just hit your question, your hand. If you're opposed, please just put your hand up. Yeah, we're just waiting to get the motion up there. Okay, so it's up there. Any events that were approved by the committee and are able to run this year, given the COVID-19 restrictions, administration has approval to disperse the funds. All right, so will anyone opposed, please just put your question hand up and we'll vote that way. Or I can just ask, is anyone opposed? Give me a verbal on that.
I am, Councillor Pinsno.
Okay, Councillor Pinsel. Anyone else opposed?
I am opposed.
And Councillor Solomon, you're opposed. Okay. Seeing that, the motion passes. All right, we'll deal with. We'll go to Councillor Kirkwood-White to deal with your other motion that you want to talk about, is having a meeting with the committee. The clerk has that now. The clerk has an issue with it as far as quorum. If 9 people from council want to join in on this, there's an issue of a quorum. Judy, you want to comment on that, please?
Yes, thank you. Councillor Kirkwood-White, I have received your email, and as it's written here, it says that a meeting be held between the Together CK Committee and interested municipal councillors to review existing committee terms of reference and to evaluate and confirm allocation processes for distribution of funds by local citizens and the local non-for-profit organizations. So as council is aware, it's council as a whole that approves the terms of reference and the process. And so if we throw this out that some councillors meet with some of the committee and then bring it forward, I do have concerns whether there'd be quorum, et cetera, et cetera. So I have no issue if it was worded that a report come back with regards to the terms of reference and allocation process, but I just think that it's a slippery slope if we start opening it up, that any councillors can attend the meeting and start talking about the terms of reference and the allocation process without a council as a whole.
Shall I speak?
Yes, Councillor Kirkwood-White, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to ensure that the members of the committee understand that there have been some issues that they would like addressed. And if we can figure out a way to have a meeting and find out how this process can work better, I'm happy.
Your Worship, I wonder whether I understand the intent of what Councillor Kirkwood-White would like to see happen. And as I spoke to earlier, I think that's a good thing to do because there has been some tension and just feeling that some of the committee members are not feeling appreciated. So I think we do need to address it. What I would suggest is that we actually just have a special meeting. People can attend. We give notice if it's required. And then with the intent that we prepare a report coming out of that meeting that could then come back to council for consideration. There's no intent not to have a meeting, and if I don't want to restrict the number of council members that are interested in attending, but then just provide notice for it, and then we can go ahead. And if we don't get quorum for it, that's not a big deal. It's an opportunity to still come back and have council as a whole consider any recommendations coming forth from the meeting.
Councillor Kirkwood-White, are you okay with proceeding that way?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll go to item.
No motion to approve, and we need a. Okay.
So we'll go to 16B. Motion by Councillor Crew, Re-Emancipation Day. Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I would like to thank Meredith for sending, I sent another motion out. It's just a little bit of language clarification. So it reads that Chatham-Kent Council acknowledges and supports the following private members bill put forward by Mohid Johari, M36, Emancipation Day, 43rd Parliament, first session, that reads as follows. That the House recognize that A, the British Parliament abolished slavery in the British Empire as of August 1st, 1834. B, slavery existed in the British North America prior to its abolition in 1834. C, abolitionists and others who struggled against slavery, including those who arrived in Upper and Lower Canada by the Underground Railroad, have historically celebrated August 1 as Emancipation Day. D, the Government of Canada announced on January 30th, 2018, that it would officially recognize the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent to highlight the important contributions that people of African descent have made in Canadian society and to provide a platform for conforming anti-Black racism. And E, the heritage of Canada's people of African descent and contributions they have made and continue to make in Canada, and that, in the opinion of the House, the government should designate August 1 of every year as Emancipation Day in Canada. And that support for this motion be sent to our Member of Parliament and all House of Commons representatives, and that support for this motion be sent to all municipalities.
Councillor B. McGregor, will you second that, please?
Be very happy to second that. Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Councillor Crew.
Thank you. I just have a couple comments because I certainly can't say it any better than the deputations from our community members. But I just want to acknowledge the work of Senator Bernard. She came to Chatham-Kent in early March or end of February, I believe. And that's when I seen her presentation about this declaring Emancipation Day nationally. So this was brought forward before the Black Lives Matter movement and the murder of Mr. Floyd. But I want to recognize that the province of Ontario already dedicated August 1st as Emancipation Day in 2008. And this just affirms that for our entire country, that are multicultural, the reality for Canadians and for the world that we are making these steps and moving forward. This is not a statutory paid holiday. It's just a day of recognition. And it's dedicated to reflect, to acknowledge, and activism towards reducing and eliminating discrimination in all countries. This creates the opportunity for healing and moving forward. Chatham-Kent works really well towards inclusion, but we can always do better. And I would like to just openly thank Member Mohid Johari for moving this forward, and I look forward to council support.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to briefly acknowledge and thank Councillor Crew and acknowledge my appreciation for her bringing this motion to the forefront. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on to item 17, community development.
17C, Ontario Heritage Act, intention to designate 201 to 203 King Street West, Community of Chatham City. And this one was pulled for a separate vote due to a conflict of interest by one council member, Councillor Solomon.
Okay, Councillor Finn and Councillor Kirkwood White, can I get to the two of you to put it on the floor, please?
Happy to make that motion.
Happy to second.
Councillor Latimer.
No, my hand was up with regard to something on the last motion. That's fine. I'm good.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll put that to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 18, infrastructure and engineering services.
18A, driving forward Chatham-Kent's transit strategy. We have a presentation by Ian Clark, the transit project manager.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff and Council. This is Ian Clark, Transit Project Manager. I'm happy to present our findings and recommendations for what is Chatham-Kent's first master plan on public transit, which we've named Driving Forward. So this project was formally launched in June 2019 after Council identified the improvement of transportation, public transit, and active transportation as a priority for your Council term. It was also in response to CK Transit Task Force findings on the current state of our public transit system, the recommendation for a public transit strategic review and the transportation master plan, as well as to address growing demand for public transit service, which has been reflected in our growing ridership numbers. As reported to Council last September, ridership has gone up 23% since 2016, which has contributed to issues with schedule performance, capacity, and service quality. Fundamentally, the objective of Driving Forward was to answer two questions. What are the transit needs of Chatham-Kent residents? And the more challenging question to answer, how can the municipality meet those needs, given some of the barriers we face as a single-tier municipality over a large area with low density, servicing a primarily captive transit market, and with competing financial priorities. We conducted an extensive public engagement process. 17 public information centers were held in 9 communities across Chatham-Kent, including one virtual session held after the pandemic began. We spent a significant portion of our 190 plus hours of engagement with direct meetings and interviews with transit stakeholders, including local businesses, service groups, committees, and other municipalities. The project team captured and reviewed more than 2,000 comments from the public. Our analysis also included recent data and comments collected by the CK Transit Task Force and the Transportation Master Plan Update Team, where it was relevant to Driving Forward. So there's no shortage of transit needs expressed by our community. Some of the more recurring needs can be summarized as extended evening hours past the current 7:15 end time to improve access to employment opportunities, college classes, or social functions, reliability, particularly as it relates to on-time performance of Chatham routes, larger vehicles to address issues with overcapacity and to improve mobility within the vehicle for those with mobility issues, improve directness and frequency of the interurban network, as well as additional rural transit options, improved communication of services and transit education, particularly for vulnerable groups, better accessibility at bus stops, hubs, and upgrades to the downtown terminal, and low fares and more convenient options for obtaining and reloading smart cards. Based on the project's findings, Driving Forward includes 60 actionable recommendations divided among 5 transit system elements: land use and transit planning, transit service delivery, fares, fleet and infrastructure, and ridership support. Each element has its own vision statement describing where our stakeholders want us to be and where we believe we could realistically be at the conclusion of the strategy's 5 to 10 year planning horizon. These vision statements are what drive the recommendations included in the report. We've incorporated a number of new strategies into the Driving Forward plan. A few of these include proactive and long-term transit infrastructure planning alongside new land developments and capital reconstruction projects, focusing on accessibility to meet the needs of our diverse and aging community, rerouting underutilized vehicles across urban, interurban, or specialized transit services to meet peak demand periods or to reduce delays where warranted, empowering ridership with the knowledge they need to effectively navigate the system, targeting fare concessions to low-income riders, and using different service delivery models depending on the most financially sustainable option given projected ridership numbers. That includes fixed route, demand responsive, or subsidizing existing transportation service partners. These models were discussed with Council last September. Through our research, we've recognized that investment in an effective transit system doesn't just benefit our ridership, but the community as a whole. So Driving Forward was aligned with the objectives of our overarching master plans, as well as informed by parallel municipal strategies where public transit can play a supporting role. Throughout the report, you'll find recommendations that contribute to urban density and sustainable growth, improved access to jobs and education, environmental stewardship, reduced social isolation, and healthier populations through access to medical services or healthy food. By designing a system that contributes to these municipal objectives, ultimately Driving Forward seeks to shift the image of public transit from a service benefiting those captive to the system to an effective tool to help accomplish municipal priorities to the benefit of all residents. While our strategy follows the Transportation Master Plan and allocates the most resources where it would benefit the most people, we've recognized through community feedback that the need for some transit service is universal across the municipality. It's important that every resident, regardless of location, can get out to buy groceries, see their doctor, or visit a friend. However, a regular and convenient transit service one would expect to get them to work every day or college classes poses a high financial challenge outside of our denser urban centers. So we're proposing a tiered approach to transit service levels that would define the intention of the routes and allocate the appropriate resources in the most sustainable manner. So if you're choosing Chatham-Kent as a destination to live and work and transit is important to you, you can make an informed decision on where to settle down based on the service levels available in that area. Urban routes operate within our largest communities with the highest service levels, such as hours and frequency, designed to meet the needs such as employment, education, as well as essential and leisure services. We believe Wallsburg and Chatham could both sustain a conventional urban system at these service levels. Interurban routes operate direct travel between primary urban centers, also intended to be at a service level to facilitate access to employment, education, and essential services that may not be available in the primary urban center in which the rider lives. Community routes are designed to provide a basic transit service level for all Chatham-Kent residents, particularly in rural areas, primarily for access to essential services found within primary urban centers or in neighboring communities. This service tier recognizes the unique rural character of Chatham-Kent and balances it with a sustainable, albeit more limited transit service level, whereas urban and interurban service levels would be cost prohibitive. These service levels would be appropriate for residents in secondary, hamlet, and other rural areas of Chatham-Kent to age in place, knowing they have a reliable transit service for things like groceries, medical appointments, and to attend social functions. Due to the low ridership numbers involved, Driving Forward recommends the most cost-effective method to deliver these services are through continued partnerships with existing providers such as Four Counties Transportation, Erie Shores Transportation, and Advantage Transportation. Finally, temporary routes are just that, temporary services for less critical needs such as special events or seasonal destinations. For our urban service in Chatham, we're recommending the permanent inclusion of a 5-vehicle fixed route system up from our 4-vehicle system to improve two-way coverage and alleviate schedule constraints during weekdays. Service would continue to run at a 30-minute frequency. Larger capacity vehicles on our busiest routes, 7-day service with extended hours into the evening to better accommodate local employment hours. Lower ridership times and days, such as evenings and weekends, could be delivered on a demand-responsive basis for better financial and operational efficiency. As ridership continues to increase over the medium to long term, we would also look at the incorporation of peak time express routes, not dissimilar to how the service operated in the early 90s. We're also recommending the introduction of conventional transit within Wallsburg, integrated with the specialized transit service already operating there. Again, based on relatively lower ridership numbers, we anticipate it being most cost-effectively offered on a demand-responsive model using a 2-vehicle system. This will allow for greater bus stop coverage, equaling the service standard in Chatham. We've also had interest from employment service representatives on Walpole Island, where we could potentially add an on-demand stop there. That could increase the labor pool in Wallsburg and also be an additional revenue stream to help support the route. Service would be available 7 days a week with extended evening hours to accommodate local employment opportunities in that community as sustainably as could be offered. We spent a long time looking at the interurban service. We concluded, in part based on our urban development objectives outlined in the official plan, that an interurban service connecting our designated primary urban centers is necessary due to the disparity of affordable housing options, employment opportunities, education, and essential services available within each of those primary centers. A reliable and regular service connecting Dresden, Wallsburg, Chatham, Tilbury, Wheatley, Blenheim, and Ridgetown can promote urban density and sustainable growth in those designated areas, regardless of the disparity of those services and opportunities, particularly for those without other transportation options. We're recommending the interurban service remain a 3-vehicle, 3-route service, but limited to our 7 primary urban centers so the system can better encourage growth in those centers, provide 2-way direct travel, and service the most residents. Secondary centers and hamlets currently on the network would be covered by the community route service level tier already discussed to connect them with their essential needs. Given the relatively lower level of ridership, the interurban service should become demand responsive rather than fixed route with scheduled trip windows. This would allow for greater bus stop coverage within each center at a reasonable walking distance equivalent to the service level in Chatham, as well as quicker trips for riders. Under this model, we think we could sustainably provide near continuous all-day service with trip options every 2 hours, up from the 4 round trips currently offered. This would make the service more convenient and maintain its reliability to connect riders with their places of employment, which may be located in a different urban center from where they live. Now, where vehicles go entirely unrequested for any trip window, we would want those vehicles to remain in Chatham or possibly Wolfsburg, where they could supplement the urban network there to mitigate scheduled delays or when we have an increase in specialized transit trips. CK Transit Specialized Services, that's Chatham and Wolfsburg accessible. They present one of the biggest challenges from a cost containment perspective. Finding a time to book a trip can be difficult, and as our population ages, we anticipate oversubscription problems will continue. Through conversations with stakeholder groups, we believe there is an opportunity to migrate some users of this service to the more cost-effective conventional service through improved accommodations and education. We're recommending integration where possible with the conventional service so the same vehicles can be used on either stream depending on where the demand exists. This increases capacity without adding more vehicles to the road. We recommend service parity with conventional, ensuring the hours and coverage of both services are equal, not more or less, extending our free support person policy to the conventional network for eligible riders, so those who simply need a helping hand to use transit can choose the more cost-effective conventional option, greater education and transit training on the conventional network, and finally, closer evaluation of our eligibility determination process. A major part of driving forward is the efficiencies gained over the long term by ensuring our land developments, whether our roadways, pedestrian networks, high occupancy residential or commercial areas, are designed to accommodate transit services rather than reactively designing transit service around the design of those new developments. The best example is the Smart Centers development in North Chatham and how difficult it is for our transit system to service that popular destination and the risk we assume, as well as the schedule impacts of competing alongside vehicular traffic in the parking lot. There are examples we could follow from similar commercial properties and other communities that have successfully integrated transit into those developments. So we're recommending the implementation of transit supportive design standards or guidelines during our development review process for new land developments or capital reconstructions if they could potentially impact current or future transit service delivery. Driving Forward also details bus stop infrastructure for better visibility and improving the image of our system, as well as the goal for making 70% of all stops accessible over the next 10 years. Also outlined in the report, and in which we've already secured funding, is a rehab of the downtown terminal and to begin expanding our shelters or developing hubs in communities outside of Chatham. We estimate the operational enhancements in Driving Forward will require a $1.5 million investment above current levels. However, we intend to return to Council prior to the 2021 budget with a detailed plan for incremental costs and staffing impacts associated with the services discussed. While we recommend new services be funded from the tax base, we'd continue current practice of funding capital or one-time expenditures from the provincial gas tax or other grants. This creates schedule uncertainty, however, has a zero municipal tax impact. Guidance on fares are discussed in the report. Council can expect any future adjustments to our concession fare structure to be driven by a recommended 25% overall fare recovery to sustain our operations, which is in line with peer systems. Council can also expect a future request for a new transit asset reserve funded through our operational savings by assuming vehicle ownership. This would be used for vehicle life cycle to mitigate a potential loss of future government funding or to fund our shelter, accessible infrastructure, or new technology strategy discussed in Driving Forward. For next steps, Driving Forward's approval will assist staff with day-to-day decisions and to prepare for what may come pending future council endorsement. We'll proceed with our Chatham route review according to the community feedback captured in Driving Forward, with the goal of improving on-time performance. We'll also proceed with the release of an RFP for a new transit operator following the expiry of current service agreements next summer. The terms of the RFP will be based around our current council-approved service levels, but will also request capacity and financial implications for the enhanced services discussed. That information will inform our detailed implementation plan for when we return to council prior to the 2021 budget. I'd like to thank the hundreds of contributors to this report from the community, ridership, businesses, staff, as well as project support from Levon and Francine. Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions or comments at this time.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Oche, can you put this on the floor? And then we'll go to questions.
Be happy to do that. Thank you.
Happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Kirkwood White and then Councillor Latimer. Questions?
I don't have any questions for Ian. I just wanted to give him a big thank you for the report and particularly for the acknowledgement of the work of the volunteers that served on the CK Transit Committee, as well as the Smart Cities Committee that was established prior to that. There was a lot of volunteer hours that went into the time that they devoted to the project, and I wanted to acknowledge your acknowledgement for recognizing their contribution. So thank you.
Councillor Latimer.
Ditto, Ian. I also think you and your team did a phenomenal job with this report. I'd like to extend appreciation for the ton of hard work you've completed to take all the quantitative data and the community gathered information to construct this essential plan. And I know I did send some comments off, and I'm looking forward to further discussion with the communities and with your team. But I did want to ask one or two questions. One was, viewing the data, or viewing the fact your data has demonstrated that fixed interurban route times currently do not adequately meet the needs of those living in smaller rural communities. I'm still wondering why we are piloting a community bus for Bothwell and Thamesville. I'm anticipating that you may find the community bus is non-functional, just like you found for our other interurban routes. And I just wondered why we wouldn't use a pilot of a demand response pilot there. And maybe once the data was there, if it provided or told us that we needed a regular community bus on a fixed schedule, we'd put it in then.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Can I just confirm I'm still sharing my screen?
You are?
Okay, perfect.
No, it's the motion
she's
that's
not?
this is the motion for from the clerk's office, so we can switch back, Ian, if you'd like.
It may help with the visual, so I'll just bring it back up.
There you go.
Okay. So just to clarify, I didn't mention in the presentation, but it is a part of the report, this community bus service. So I mentioned the community route service level tier within our hierarchy. That is meant to provide a basic transit level service to the most rural areas of Chatham-Kent, likely on an advanced booking basis. Within the report, we've coined it Route 20, but of course, for financial efficiency, we would recommend it actually be delivered by some of our existing service providers there, like Four Counties, Erie Shores, and Advantage. Now, we recommend that because it's the most financially efficient option. But it's important to note that just due to the large area and the very low density that this type of service would offer, this type of service is almost inherently inefficient. So we can't expect there to be a lot of people in these rural areas who happen to be sharing the same origin to destination travel patterns at the same times. If people are going to their doctor, it's always at different times of the day. So we can't expect to fill a vehicle, which would promote the most financial efficiency. So there's going to be a lot of one-off trips provided by these services, which is why fares are typically higher for these types of services. So we have outlined a community bus pilot. It's an idea that we borrowed from other municipalities. And the idea here is to recognize that some of our secondary urban centers, such as Bothwell and Thamesville, There is an opportunity because of their higher populations with the right marketing and the right fare incentives to try to encourage a larger group, let's just say 10 or more people, to align their shopping habits to the same weekly or bi-weekly time that we propose. So we can more efficiently get these residents to where they need to go for their shopping trips and reduce some of the one-off trips that you'd get under this Route 20 or Advantage system. So we think there may be an opportunity in these communities to support this type of service. You can consider it sort of a higher level transit service, particularly for our secondary urban centers. But we just don't expect that, given the available population below our primary urban centers, that we could attract the type of ridership that would be necessary to sustain those higher service levels I already described for our inner urban service. So this is why we think a community bus, just by piloting it, we can see if there would be ridership demand in these secondary urban centers, which would be more efficiently delivered than that community route service tier. I hope that better explains the difference between the two.
It does. Thank you, Ian. And I assume that the pilot there will be an evaluation period whereby you're somehow capturing people who don't use that service and what they would use if they had something else. I mean, the interurban system has always been underutilized, and I've always felt it was because it was non-functional. Not everybody shops. You said it. Not everybody shops at the same time. Not everybody goes to the doctor at the same time. But I'm very happy that we're looking at the demand response with travel windows, and I think that's going to significantly improve access to transportation. I did want to ask also, in Park Ave, the urban service or the urban service in Chatham, why Park Ave was not being viewed as a potential transit corridor. And I know you didn't touch on that either in your overview, but especially with the new beginnings in the cemetery and affordable housing rental units at the east end, and the new development of both rental units and housing occurring at the west end. In your potential map, Park Ave was missing, and I just wondered why.
Through you, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Councillor. So the route corridors that were put into the Driving Forward report, it was just a conceptual network, and it was mostly based on 2019 ridership data and known changes that could be coming. But I think you're absolutely right. With some of the developments that have been recently approved on Park Avenue, it would absolutely be a great candidate for a higher investment of transit service.
Oh, wonderful. We'll take a look at that. And also, I wondered, you touched on rideshare pilots in your report, and I wanted you to describe a little more about how you intended to promote rideshare pilots to improve accessibility, especially for those employees or employers who currently have no reliable or nil transportation to enable completion of their work shifts, and what the timeline would be on those.
Pardon me, Councillor. So the question was about how we would promote our services?
Well, how you would promote rideshare. You touched on it in your report. You saw it as a supplement to Driving Forward, but a very important supplement, especially for those employers who currently have no reliable or nil transportation to enable completion of their work shifts.
Okay, so this was, so this was some of our existing non-municipal transportation options you're speaking to, that the rideshare?
It's not really existing. I wondered, you said you wanted to promote it, and I wondered if there was any, has there been any discussion or any ideas with regard to that?
We've had discussions with some of our non-municipal transportation partners, such as URide, which is a rideshare program. We would like to ideally get to a stage where we can promote transportation as a service overall, whether it be public transit options or taxi companies or rideshare companies. Other municipalities are looking into this type of service. It's almost a one-stop shop where I need to get to here at this time. These are my options available. So I think it just makes sense to not just promote our municipal public transit services, but all of the different transportation options. And Driving Forward does go over quite a few, including CHAPS and our airport service and all that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the direction that we want to go to improve overall mobility in the community.
All right. Thanks very much, Ian. And again, I commend all of you. This is a phenomenal report and a good job by all of you. Thank you.
Councillor Kirkwood-White.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just getting a message through while I'm sitting here from a constituent that wants to know, while we're on the subject of buses, if there is a hand sanitizer on each bus. And given the fact that we've just been given permission to increase the number of people that are riding, how often are the buses cleaned? And who made the decision? Was it Dr. Colby that made the decision to allow more people on the bus? So I think that's 3 questions.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkwood-White. This is Anne-Marie Milson, Manager of Linear Assets. As this is an operational question, I thought I would be best to help out on this one.
Thank you.
Currently, we do have hand sanitizers installed on the buses. As patrons come on, it's available there for them to wash their hands, and that's supposed to be on all buses. We do have social distancing currently in place on all of our buses, but in consultation with the public health, we've been having issues with people being left behind for runs because there's only been about 6 people allowed on, unless there was a family that's getting on together. So we are removing the social distancing from seating, and we are highly recommending that our patrons please use a mask, because that is what the province is saying when social distancing cannot be maintained. And basically on transit, just getting on the bus and walking by somebody, you're less than 2 meters from patrons. Did I answer every part of that question? Seems to me there might be one missing.
Yeah, just one more question, Anne Marie, that has to do with the how often the buses are cleaned.
The drivers, thank you for reminding me of that. The drivers are doing handrails and frequently touched as often as they can between runs. And then there's a deep cleaning going on in the evenings. I know that between the interurban routes, I have been speaking with the owners there, and they are cleaning the buses between each route. Again, the highly touched areas.
Great, thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. Moving on to 18B, Lord Selkirk Bridge over Sydenham River, Bridge Rehabilitation, Community of Wallaceburg.
Councillor Hall and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you put this on the floor, please?
Yes, happy to move the recommendations.
Happy to second.
And Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a quick question to Mr. T-Bear. I had these questions come to me from the community, and I just think it was important to ask and open. So maybe actually might be directed toward Mr. Quinton, sorry. So in a process like this, when the expenditure has actually already been, the services are already been rendered, are we just basically stamping the fact that we're saying that it's okay, even though the money has already been spent? I'm just kind of curious to see how the process with this works when we're approving something that's already been spent, essentially.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. This is Chris Tieber, Director of Engineering. If I could jump in really quick here first, just want to confirm one point. I know I did speak with Councillor Sakachi there prior to this, but just to confirm one point, that the ask in this contract for the additional monies to go towards the consulting effort for this project has not been paid yet to the consultant. The work has been performed, however, and the work has been performed over the past several months, but we waited until the completion of the project and final completion of the consulting effort before we made any commitment to council to come forward with the bigger picture of what the final product is going to be. So we have not paid the consultant yet. We need obviously that approval from council first before we commit to that, and this is what this report is addressing. But the work has been complete.
So my question then would be directed to Mr. Quinton. What's the number that would be something that would come to council before the service has been rendered? So just in case it was something that would not be supported, which I'm obviously in favor of, it's just that there was a couple of questions that I was asked that I just felt was required to be answered. The process behind this, that we have rendered the service has been rendered, and now we're asking for the funding. If we didn't approve it, which obviously we're going to, I'm just curious to see what would be the steps if that were to transpire.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So I have to look into our purchasing policy exactly, but I think up to a 10% variance, the department can usually handle, and this was at a 12%, 12.6% overage. So that's why it's coming back to council for approval. With these types of projects, it was, as explained in the report, there was just things that came up throughout the rehabilitation that added a larger amount of scope to the work. And so that's, that's the point of this report, is to come back to council to explain that there were issues and we've run over budget, and we're looking for council's permissions to pay the bill. So that's where engineering is following the process. I don't think they've expected it to be, it was as they went through the project that this overage accumulated, and perhaps if it was really early on, they would have been able to come to ask permission ahead of time, but it just how that it accumulated over time there. It's sort of after the fact that this is happening. But so our policies do require, though, that they come back to council for your approval, because it was over the original amount.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinton, and I agree, Mr. Tiba, that the report, they did a very good job describing all the action that had to be required. I just thought it was a very good couple questions from the community that I wanted to ensure that was asked and open. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Time to vote.
All votes are in. Motion carries. 18C, Great Lakes and St. Lawrence City Initiatives, Stimulus Water Restoration Initiative, Call to Action for Municipal Leaders.
Councillor Latimer and Councillor Pincinel, can I get you, the two of you, to put it on the floor, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, Councillor Latimer.
Thank you. I would like to thank Mayor Caniff for the ongoing privilege to represent Chatham-Kent on the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative Board of Directors. As well, Mr. Shropshire, Mr. Kelly, and administrative support are appreciated for their ongoing willingness to participate in this water restoration stimulus initiative in responding to the initial GLSCI survey and request to garner support of our neighboring municipalities in Southwestern Ontario Shoreline Roundtable partners. Mr. Kelly has submitted our 3 shoreline road reconstruction projects as a part of the 70+ shovel-ready projects that are part of this Canadian stimulus ask of $6.3 billion for water infrastructure and $700 million for coastal protection to create an estimated 152,000 jobs. And I would like to move this recommendation, and I'm hopeful that all my fellow councillors will wholeheartedly support and endorse this resolution, requesting support for federal economic stimulus investments in water resource priorities for the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence communities.
Okay, see no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion carries. 18D, encroachment agreement, 27 Adelaide Street South, Chatham. And this one is again because there was a conflict.
Councillor Finn and Councillor Crew, can I get the two of you to put it on the floor, please?
Happy to make the motion.
Second.
Okay, no questions. We'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes. 18E, 2020 Arena Capital Asset Lifecycle Projects.
Now, this will be the McGregor's motion. Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get the two of you to put it on the floor?
Yes, I'll move that.
Certainly, Mayor Caniff.
Okay, can I, Councillor Kirkwood White and Councillor Sakachi.
Councillor Kirkwood White, we can't hear you.
Thank you. I was pressing the button and nothing was happening.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Thank you. I just wanted to make mention of the fact that there was no reference to the Chatham Memorial Arena in this report, but I happily received an email this afternoon from Jeff Bray indicating that the washrooms at Memorial Arena would be renovated this summer. And I know that there will be some people listening in that will be very happy to hear that. That's it.
Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I think that my questions have been somewhat answered in the initial conversation regarding COVID relief. So I'm okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll put it to vote then.
All votes are in. Motion passes. And 18G, 2020 Indoor Pool Life Cycle Projects.
Councillor Solomon and Councillor McGrail, can I get you to put it on the floor, please?
I'll be happy to move.
All right.
Now I've got it unmuted. Okay, I can second it.
All right, Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Kirkwood White.
I apologize, Mayor Caniff. I wasn't looking to speak on this item.
All right, Councillor Kirkwood White.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question for Jeff. I noticed in looking at all of the other life cycle projects that there's a significant amount of money sitting in the reserves, and this one only has $260 left after we make all the expenditures in 2020. And just wondering whether that's going to be enough to get us going for next year.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe it will be. This life cycle seems to be perpetually underfunded. As you'll note, the last 2 years, I had to ask for permission to bring funds over from the outdoor life cycle reserve. But I'm confident the pools are in pretty good shape, and we're looking at perhaps consolidating these life cycles.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions? We'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes.
Item 19, notice of motion. We have not received any. Just clarify, no one has any. Hearing none. Item 20, closed session reports. Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Tonight we have a number of reports that have to be reported on, and they are from Friday, June 19th, Monday, June 29th, and Friday, June 20th. Friday, I think we get wrong dates in here in my report I have. It should be Monday, July 20th.
That's right.
Sorry. I apologize for that. I think it just needs to be changed on the report. So June 19th, absent for Councillors Finn, Pinsno, and Wright. Council directed administration on proposed acquisition of land by the municipality or local board and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with regard to surplus St. Clair Catholic School Board properties, specifically St. Joe's Catholic School, 25 Raleigh Street, Chatham, Section 2392C and F of the Municipal Act. On June 29th, all were present. Council directed administration on advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose with regard to surplus St. Clair Catholic School Board properties, specifically St. Joe's Catholic School, 25 Raleigh Street, Section 2392F of the Municipal Act 2001. And council received information on security of the property of the municipality or local board with regard to the Corporate Technology Strategic Plan, Section 2392A of the Municipal Act 2001. And earlier today, absent were Councillor Salmon, who had a conflict, and council directed administration on proposed disposition of land by the municipality and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with regard to 540 Park Ave East, Unit 5, Section 2392C and F of the Municipal Act. And I would so move that, or the reports.
Okay, Councillor Foss, can I get you to second that, please?
I will second that.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. The approval of communication items, Councillor Foss, or sorry, yeah, Councillor Foss and Wright. Can I get the two of you to put this on the floor for both A and B?
Also move.
I'll second that.
Any questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Item 22, non-agenda business. Like Don Shropshire is going to start us off.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I want to take a moment just to acknowledge that this is John Norton's last official council meeting he'll be attending. As many of you know, John has served as a trusted legal advisor to council and to administration for the past decade. That work has been tireless. He's been working 7 days a week. It's in many instances, he's always been there whenever there was a question or requested support. Most recently with the pandemic, there's been many occasions when Dr. Colby's acknowledged the work of John and his legal team in helping prepare a number of Section 22 orders and so on. That's been the case for the last decade. And more recently, John has served as our general manager for community development. And in that role, he's provided leadership to the community in a number of critically important pieces. He led the red tape reduction campaign. He was instrumental in championing our community growth strategy, and most recently on Economic Recovery Task Force. So those are huge accomplishments that have really benefited our community. But John has chosen to take on some additional challenges now as the CAO for Georgian Bluffs. And I just want to wish him every success in his new role. I have every confidence he's going to be hugely successful in that role, given his past performance. But I would ask members of the council and administration who are on the call to just join me in thanking John for his many years of dedicated service to Chatham-Kent, and to wish him every success in his new role as CAO of Georgian Bluffs.
John, would you like to say anything for your last words?
Two-minute rebuttal?
Yeah, 2-minute rebuttal.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and thank you to the CAO. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity of serving this great community. It's been my privilege and honor to work for the people of Chatham-Kent. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, John, for everything you've done. I've got to know you quite well over the last couple of years, and I know that you'll be, knocking out of the park in your next role. So best of luck to you. Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just had a quick question for either Gord or Stuart. Wondering if we could get a just a brief update on the Chatham-Kent Small Business Recovery Grant. So I know those applications just closed, and I imagine there's some interest in the community in understanding what the next steps are and when council will have an opportunity to take a look at what's been applied for and when people will be able to expect to be notified they're successful and will be receiving funding.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. It's Gord Quinton, Chief Financial Officer. So there were 168 applications received, and the committee is the application period closed just late last week, so the committee is getting together this week to review the applications, and we'll be bringing a report to the August 10th meeting with recommendations on funding.
Thank you.
Councilor McGrail.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. My question is regards to the upcoming tax payments. And I might be an anomaly here, but I have yet to receive in the mail this half of the year's payment schedule. And is it still all a go, or are we doing a deferred payment or late payment, accepting late payments? Gord, I think that's for you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. So as you know, council approved delaying the second installment to July 10th and delaying the third installment till September, I believe it's the 10th as well. So with that happening, we waited till after July 10th to print the tax bills, so that would have the most up-to-date information on if people paid in the first couple weeks of July. So it's being sent to the printer shortly later this week, and then will be mailed out next week. I don't have the exact date, but well in advance for people to prepare for September the 10th, the due dates.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the first and second reading, Councillor Solomon, Councillor Thompson. You put the motion out?
Moved. Seconded.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Councillor Crew and Councillor Oche for the third reading. You put it on the floor, please.
My battery's getting low. I'll move it.
Seconded. Anyone opposed? Carried. Resolution of council.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I would like to move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, August 10th, 2020, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorizes itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
Okay, and the last person we mentioned as a seconder date will be Councillor Harrigan. Are you up for the task?
I am happy to second.
Excellent. Anyone opposed? Carried. That's a wrap. Have a great night, everyone. What's left of it.